The first sign something was wrong came during the quarterly board meeting. I was mid-presentation when Marcus, our lead investor, interrupted me. "Peyton, didn't we already discuss these projections last week?" I blinked, gripping my laser pointer. "No, this is the first time I'm presenting these numbers. But I have an email confirmation from you about a private review session last Thursday at 2 p.m. My husband August, sitting at the far end of the conference table, leaned forward. "Honey, remember, you scheduled it right after our lunch with Mom." I hadn't had lunch with anyone that day. I'd been in back-to-back code reviews until 6 p.m. I opened my mouth to say exactly that, but something in August's expression made me pause. His concern looked rehearsed. "I must have forgotten," I said instead, forcing a smile. "Let's continue with the current data. My name is Peyton Ellis, and at 34, I'm the founder and CEO of BridgeSync AI, a company I built from my garage into a $40 million enterprise. That board meeting was 3 months ago. Now, I'm sitting in my home office, staring at my medication bottle, knowing someone has been tampering with my pills." "You're not imagining things," Jacqueline says, examining the capsules I've spread across my desk. My best friend since college and now BridgeSync's general counsel, she's the only person I trust completely. "These aren't your regular dosage. Someone's opened them." "August keeps saying I'm working too hard," I tell her, running my fingers through my hair. "His mother, Rosalind, stopped by yesterday, went on about how my father's nervous breakdown must have been hereditary." "Your father was misdiagnosed," Jacqueline snaps, "and he was pushed to suicide by exactly this kind of manipulation." "Peyton, what if they're trying to gaslight you?" The word hits me like a slap. Last week, my calendar showed blank spaces, where I distinctly remembered scheduling client meetings. Important files disappeared from my laptop. My assistant swears I approved vacation days I never discussed. "Watch this," I say, pulling up security footage from our home gym. August enters frame, heading straight for my gym bag. He removes my water bottle, adds something, shakes it. Jacqueline's face hardens. "When did you install the camera?" "After I found meeting memos in the shredder that I never saw before. August claimed I must have shredded them myself during my exhausted state." I laugh bitterly. "He's been pushing me to take a sabbatical." My phone buzzes. A text from August. "Mum's coming for dinner. She's worried about you. Maybe we should discuss taking a break from work." Jacqueline grabs my hand. "Don't confront them yet. We need to understand what they're planning." "Oh, I know what they're planning," I say, pulling up our company bylaws. Section 7.3. In the event of the CEO's incapacitation or mental unfitness, leadership transfers automatically to the COO, my loving husband. The board would never. 3 board members had private meetings with August last week. Meetings I supposedly approved but have no memory of. A knock at my office door makes us both jump. It's Helen, a junior exec I've been mentoring. "Peyton? Sorry to interrupt, but Mrs. Lewis is in the lobby. She's asking about your medical history, specifically about psychiatric care." My hands shake as I open my desk drawer, reaching for my anti-anxiety medication. Then I stop, remembering the tampered capsules. "Tell her I'll be right down," I say calmly. After Helen leaves, Jacqueline grabs my arm. "Don't take any pills they could have accessed. In fact, don't eat or drink anything August or his mother could have touched." I nod, but my mind is already racing ahead. "I need you to do something for me. Check if any documents have been filed under my electronic signature recently." "You think they'd forge?" "I think they'd do anything." I stand up, smoothing my skirt. My father trusted the wrong people and it killed him. I won't make the same mistake. As I head downstairs to face my mother-in-law, I feel the weight of my phone in my pocket, already recording. Let them think I'm unraveling. Let them think their plan is working. I catch my reflection in the hallway mirror and deliberately mess up my hair a bit. Time to give the performance of my life. "Peyton! Darling!" Rosalind's voice carries up the stairs. "We're all so worried about you." I touch the phone in my pocket like a talisman and descend the stairs. The game is on, but not the one they think they're playing. The voice recorder was smaller than my thumb. I placed it carefully under the fruit bowl on our kitchen island, the spot where August and his mother had their daily morning coffee when she visited. 2 more went into my home office, one behind the bookshelf, another beneath my desk. "Testing, testing," I whispered, then played it back on my phone. Crystal clear. My hands didn't shake anymore when I planted the devices. After 2 weeks of playing the unstable CEO, I'd gotten good at appearing scattered while staying sharp. The recordings were already proving invaluable. "She's getting worse," August had said yesterday, not knowing the gym bag he was talking next to contained my newest recorder. The board's concerned about her erratic behaviour. "Perfect," Rosalind had replied. "I found someone who can help. A psychiatric consultant who understands delicate family situations." I'd nearly blown my cover that morning, wanting to confront them both. Instead, I'd walked into the gym, hair messy, mumbling about missing meetings. The door to my home office opened. I quickly minimised the recording app. "Hey, honey." August's concern seemed genuine, if you didn't know better. "You missed the executive lunch?" "Did I?" I rubbed my temples. "I could have sworn that was tomorrow." "It's okay." He massaged my shoulders. I forced myself not to flinch. "Maybe you should lie down." My phone buzzed. A text from Jacqueline. "Emergency. Come to my office now." "I have to go," I said, standing abruptly. "Jacqueline needs something." "You shouldn't drive when you're like this." August reached for my keys. I laughed, letting it sound slightly hysterical. "Like what, August? Crazy?" He flinched perfectly. "I didn't say that. I'm worried about you." 20 minutes later, I sat in Jacqueline's office, listening to a recording she'd obtained from the board meeting I'd missed. August's voice filled the room. "As COO, I'm prepared to step in temporarily. The succession clause is clear. We need to protect the company." "And you're certain about her condition?" That was Marcus. "Once she's on a 72-hour hold, it's over. The transfer of power becomes automatic." I stopped the playback, my blood running cold. "They're planning to have me committed." "There's more." Jacqueline handed me a paper. "Your signature appeared on 3 new policy documents this week. I know you didn't sign them." "They're setting the stage." I stood up, pacing, making it look like I'm making irrational decisions. A knock interrupted us. Helen slipped in, closing the door quickly. "Sorry, but you need to hear this," she whispered. "Mrs. Lewis is in the break room, asking about your prescription history. She told the nurse practitioner it's for insurance purposes." "Did the nurse give her anything?" "No. I interrupted, said we needed medical releases first." Helen hesitated. "Peyton, she's also been asking about your father." "My father." The brilliant software engineer who trusted his business partner, only to be gradually convinced he was losing his mind. Who died thinking he was crazy. "Thank you, Helen." I kept my voice steady. "Keep monitoring her, but don't let her know you're suspicious." After Helen left, Jacqueline grabbed my shoulders. "We need to move faster. They're building their case while we gather evidence." "No," I said, pulling out my phone. "Let them build it. Every false document, every manipulated meeting, every concerned conversation, it's all being recorded. But first," I dialed a number I hadn't used in years. "Dr. Kelly, this is Peyton Ellis. My father was your patient." I took a deep breath. "I need your help." "Peyton? Of course. What's wrong?" "Remember how they convinced my father he was paranoid? It's happening again. But this time we're going to catch them. That evening, I returned home late. August and Rosalind were in the kitchen, right above my recorder. "She's getting worse," August was saying. "The board's ready. We just need the right moment." "The consultant I found will help," Rosalind replied. "He's handled similar cases. She won't see the rubber walls before we've changed the locks." They laughed. I walked in swaying slightly. "Who's there, August?" "In here, honey." His voice switched to concern instantly. "Where have you been? We were worried." "Just working, I think. Was I working?" I blinked at them confused. "I'm so tired." "Poor dear," Rosalind cooed. "August, help her to bed. We'll discuss everything tomorrow." As August led me upstairs, I caught Rosalind's satisfied smile. Let them think they're winning. Let them think I'm breaking. The recorder caught their whispers after they thought I was asleep. "Call the consultant. Tell him we're ready." I touched the phone under my pillow, already sending the audio files to Jacqueline's secure server. They wanted to replay my father's tragedy. Instead, they'd written their own. I stood in front of my father's grave, the morning dew soaking through my shoes. 10 years since his death, and the pain still felt fresh. "They said you were paranoid too, Dad," I whispered, placing fresh flowers against the headstone. "Said you were imagining things when you suspected your partner was sabotaging you." "Peyton!" I turned to find Dr. Kelly walking across the cemetery grass. He looked older than I remembered, but his eyes were still sharp. "You always visit him on Thursdays," he said, standing beside me. "Just like your father visited his father. Did you know they ruled his death a suicide because of untreated schizophrenia?" My voice cracked. "But you knew better, didn't you?" I tried telling the investigators that Thomas was being systematically gaslit, that his partner was orchestrating his breakdown to take control of their patents. Dr. Kelly's hands clenched. By the time I gathered enough evidence, it was too late. My phone buzzed. A text from Helen. "Rosalind's in HR again, asking about your sick days from last year. They're using my father's death against me," I said, showing him the message, suggesting mental illness runs in the family. History repeating itself. Dr. Kelly touched my shoulder. "But this time we're ahead of them." Back at the office, I found August's desk empty. "Working late again," his assistant said. "Third time this week." Jacqueline burst into my office minutes later, face pale. "You need to see this." She pulled up a document on her tablet. My signature danced across the bottom, authorizing a transfer of 51% company stake. "It's a draft," she said quickly, "filed under August's private server. They haven't submitted it yet." "The forge is good," I admitted, studying the signature. "They must have practiced." "Peyton," Jacqueline hesitated. "There's something else. August's been meeting someone at the Westbrook Hotel. Room 412. Every night he's working late." I laughed hollowly. "Let me guess. The psychiatric consultant?" "No." She showed me the hotel's security footage. "Rosalind." My stomach turned. Mother and son plotting my downfall over room service. "They're getting sloppy," Helen said from the doorway. We hadn't heard her come in. "Rosalind's asking weird questions about your prescription history. People are noticing." I pulled up the audio files from last night's kitchen recording. August and Rosalind's voices filled the room. "The board meeting's on Tuesday," August was saying, "once the consultant confirms her instability." "I've arranged everything," Rosalind interrupted. "The medical records, the witness statements, even old college roommates willing to discuss her episodes." "All fake," I whispered. "All recorded," Jacqueline corrected. My phone rang. Dr. Kelly. "Peyton, a woman just called my office, said she's a consultant doing a psychiatric evaluation for Bridge Sync's insurance update. Asked about your father's case." "What did you tell her?" "That I'd need signed releases. But, Peyton," he paused. She mentioned having them already. With your signature. More forgeries. More lies. I ended the call and faced Jacqueline and Helen. Tuesday, I said. They're making their move Tuesday. We have enough evidence, Jacqueline insisted. Let me file charges now. No. I stood up, smoothing my skirt. Let them try their intervention. Let them bring their fake consultant and forged documents, because Dr. Kelly will be there too, the real psychiatrist they didn't know about. It's dangerous, Helen protested. What if something goes wrong? Nothing can go wrong, I said, pulling up the audio files. Because everything's already gone right. We have their conversations, their plans, their hotel meetings. We have the forged documents and fake signatures. We have witnesses to Rosalind's digging. And we have you, Jacqueline added, playing the perfect mark. I touched my father's photo on my desk. They think I'm him. They think I'll break like he did. I smiled grimly. But I'm not my father, and they're not as smart as they think they are. That night, I left the office early, making sure to stumble slightly in the lobby. Security cameras caught it all, just as they caught August slipping into his car 20 minutes later, heading for room 412. At home, I recorded a video diary entry, letting my voice shake just right. I don't know what's real anymore. The meetings I miss, the decisions I don't remember making. Maybe they're right. Maybe I need help. I saved it where August would accidentally find it. Let them think they've won. Let them think Tuesday will be their triumph. They forgot the most important lesson from my father's story. Sometimes the person you're trying to break is actually the one breaking you. You're sure about this? Dr. Kelly asked, studying the plan I'd laid out in his office. Once we start, there's no going back. They're planning an intervention for Tuesday, I said, pacing, complete with their hired consultant and fabricated evidence. I need you there. As the voice of professional reason? He smiled grimly. Like I tried to be for your father. As the trap they won't see coming. I stopped pacing. They'll bring their fake expert. But you'll be the real one, with actual credentials and 30 years of experience. My phone buzzed. A text from August. Working late again. Don't wait up. Room 412, no doubt. Planning my downfall with his mother over minibar drinks. Time to give them what they want, I told Dr. Kelly. A complete psychological breakdown. The next morning, I arrived at work with deliberately mismatched shoes. In the elevator, I muttered to myself just loud enough for others to hear. During the marketing meeting, my hand shook as I poured water, spilling it across the table. Are you okay? Helen asked afterward, playing her part perfectly. Fine, I said too brightly. Just need to finish these reports, all 47 of them. There were only 5 reports due. By lunch, word had spread. I caught concerned glances, heard whispered conversations stop when I walked past. In the bathroom, I messed up my makeup slightly and left my hair uncombed. August called right on cue. Honey, people are worried about you, he said, concern dripping from every word. Maybe you should come home early. Can't. Too busy. The purple elephants need their reports. A pause. I could almost hear him smiling. What elephants, sweetheart? The ones in the conference room. Don't you see them? I hung up, knowing he was probably already calling Rosalind. Right after lunch, I had Helen deliver a stack of papers to the board members, random documents I'd signed with increasingly erratic signatures. Is she in there now? I heard Marcus ask her. Yes, Helen replied, her voice shaking perfectly. She's been talking to the wall for 20 minutes. Back in my office, I pulled up the security feed from August's private conference room. He and Rosalind were there with a man I didn't recognise, probably their hired consultant. I activated the recorder I'd hidden under their table last night. She's deteriorating faster than expected, the man was saying. Tuesday might be too late. Perfect, Rosalind replied. The The sooner she's committed, the sooner we can stabilise the company. And what about after? August asked. Once she's in treatment? Rosalind laughed. Once she's in, she won't be making any decisions about anything. The rubber walls will be her new office. I switched off the feed as Jacqueline entered. They're accelerating their timeline, she warned. Board members are gathering for an emergency meeting tomorrow. Good. I showed her my phone, Dr. Kelly's confirmation that he'd cleared his schedule. Let them rush. The faster they move, the sloppier they get. That afternoon, I gave them a show they couldn't resist. During a video call with investors, I suddenly started screaming about invisible spiders. August had to escort me out, his arm around my shoulders as I babbled nonsense. Shh, he soothed, leading me to his office. You're not well, honey. Let us help you. The moment his door closed, I heard him dial Rosalind. It's time, he said. Call everyone. Tomorrow morning, not Tuesday. She's ready. After he drove me home, I waited until he left for his nightly hotel meeting. Then, I called Dr. Kelly. They moved it to tomorrow, I told him. 9 a.m. I'll be there, he promised. The evidence? Jacqueline has everything backed up on 3 separate servers. Helen's collected statements from staff about Rosalind's digging. The recordings are time-stamped and authenticated. And you're ready for your performance? I touched my father's old watch, my lucky charm. I've been practicing my whole life for this role. That night, I left my video diary running loud enough for August to hear when he came home. The shadows are watching me. They know what I did, what I'm going to do. But the elephants will protect me. The purple ones, not the green ones. The green ones lie. I heard him on the phone moments later. Mom, call everyone now. First thing tomorrow. She's completely lost it. After he hung up, I smiled in the darkness of my room. Let them think they're winning. Let them think tomorrow is their victory. They don't know that when you corner someone who has nothing left to lose, you've actually cornered yourself. Tomorrow, they'll learn what real madness looks like. They arrived at 9 a.m. sharp. August, Rosalind, 2 board members, their hired consultant, and what looked like private security. I was sitting in our living room, hair wild, staring at nothing. Peyton? August's voice was gentle. We need to talk. The elephants said you'd come, I whispered, not looking at them. They know everything. Rosalind stepped forward, clutching a folder. Darling, we're here because we love you. We've all noticed changes in your behaviour. The doorbell rang. Right on time. That'll be Dr. Kelly, I said dreamily. The shadows told me he was coming. August stiffened. Who? Dr. Kelly walked in, medical bag in hand. I'm Dr. Forrest Kelly. I was Thomas Ellis's psychiatrist. Peyton called me yesterday, concerned about her mental state. I hid my smile as I watched their faces. This wasn't part of their script. We have our own specialist, Rosalind said sharply, gesturing to their consultant. Dr. Roberts, the man introduced himself, extending his hand to Dr. Kelly. Interesting, Dr. Kelly replied, not taking it, because I know every psychiatric specialist in the state, and I've never heard of you. The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Shall we begin? I asked, voice quavering. The purple elephants are getting impatient. August sat beside me, taking my hand. Honey, you've been acting erratically, missing meetings, talking to yourself, making strange decisions. We have documentation, Rosalind added, opening her folder. Witness statements, medical records, even incidents from college. All forged, I said clearly, my voice suddenly steady. The room went silent. What? August's hand dropped mine. I stood up, smoothing my hair back. Every document in that folder is forged. Every witness statement is fake. Every medical record is fabricated. She's delusional, their consultant cut in. This paranoia proves... Actually, Dr. Kelly interrupted, I'd say it proves something quite different. He pulled out his phone. Shall we listen to some interesting recordings? I opened my laptop, which had been sitting quietly on the coffee table. Or perhaps we should watch some security footage from room 412 at the Westbrook Hotel. The colour drained from August's face. Better yet, I continued, let's review the forged documents you filed under my signature, the ones transferring company control, or maybe the video of you tampering with my medication. You're sick, Rosalind snapped. You need help. No, Mother, I said, emphasising the title she'd never earned. What I need is for everyone to hear this. I played the recording from their last hotel meeting. Once she's in, she won't be making any decisions about anything. The rubber walls will be her new office. Their hired consultant started backing toward the door. Dr. Roberts, I called out, or should I say Mr. Pete Davidson, former actor and current con man. The medical board would be very interested in your credentials. He bolted. You recorded us, August's voice shook. You've been pretending? Like you pretended to love me? I stood up. Like you pretended to care while plotting to have me committed? Dr. Kelly pulled out his phone. I'm calling hospital security, not for Peyton, for attempted medical fraud and conspiracy. You can't prove anything, Rosalind snarled. Actually, Jacqueline said, walking in with Helen, we can prove everything. Every meeting, every forged document, every manipulated situation, even your attempts to access private medical records. The board members, who'd been silent until now, started edging toward the exit. Don't leave yet, I called after them. You'll want to be here when the police arrive to discuss your roles in this conspiracy. Peyton, August tried one last time, everything I did was for us. No, I cut him off. Everything you did was for you. Because you couldn't stand that I succeeded where you failed. That I built something real while you built nothing but lies. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. You tried to make me my father, I said quietly. Tried to drive me to the same edge that killed him. But you forgot something crucial. What's that? Rosalind demanded, even as police cars pulled up outside. I smiled, cold and clear. I'm not him, and you're not nearly as smart as you think you are. The front door burst open as officers poured in. I watched them read rights, click handcuffs, lead away the architects of my intended destruction. You did it, Dr. Kelly said softly. You got justice for both of you. I touched my father's watch as August and Rosalind were escorted out. No, Dad got justice for himself. I just made sure his story helped me write a different ending. The purple elephants, it turned out, had been right all along. The news broke like a tsunami. By noon, every tech blog and business site had the story. Tech CEO thwarts family's conspiracy to have her committed. I sat in my office watching the chaos unfold on multiple screens. August's corporate credentials had already been deactivated. 2 board members had resigned. Rosalind's social media had gone dark after a flood of angry comments. Look at this, Helen said, showing me her phone. A small YouTuber had somehow gotten hold of one of the hotel recordings. The view count was skyrocketing. My phone buzzed, a text from August. Please, we need to talk. I can explain everything. Don't respond, Jacqueline advised, walking in with a stack of papers. Let him sweat while we file these lawsuits. Any word from their fake doctor? I asked. Pete Davidson was arrested trying to board a flight to Mexico, Helen reported. He's singing like a canary about how Rosalind hired him. Another notification popped up on my screen. An email from a journalist named Dylan Hernandez. My blood ran cold as I read it. What? Jacqueline asked, seeing my expression. I turned my laptop around. Found this in August's email drafts. 3 weeks ago, he pitched me a story about unstable female executives in tech. He was setting up a media hit piece to run after they had me committed. Bastard, Helen whispered. My office door burst open. Marcus, one of the remaining board members, stormed in. This is a disaster, he announced. The stock is dropping. Investors are calling. We need to contain this. Contain what? I stood up slowly. The fact that board members conspired with my husband to have me falsely committed? That you held secret meetings to transfer company control? I didn't know. Really? I played another recording, his voice clearly agreeing to August's succession plan. Want to try again? He left without another word. Within an hour, his resignation letter arrived. 4 down, Jacqueline said, adding it to her file. The rest will follow. My phone kept buzzing with messages from August, each more desperate than the last. Please, let me explain. Everything I did was for us. You're making a mistake. Don't destroy what we built. I blocked his number. Peyton, Helen called from her laptop. You need to see this. A live news feed showed Rosalind outside the police station, surrounded by reporters. She was in full victim mode. My son and I were only trying to help her, she sobbed. She's sick, just like her father was. This proves it. I laughed darkly. She's still trying to play that card. Not for long, Jacqueline said, typing furiously. I just sent the police the recording of her bribing the fake psychiatrist, and her fingerprints are on the tampered medication bottles. My desk phone rang. The front desk. Ms. Ellis, Mr. Lewis is in the lobby, demanding to see you. He's causing a scene. I switched to the lobby security feed. August was there, dishevelled, yelling at security. Let him come up, I said. Are you sure? Helen asked. Very. Minutes later, August burst into my office. Peyton, please. Security, I called calmly. Please record this. He froze, noticing the guards positioning themselves. What's wrong, August? Worried about being recorded? Like all those times you plotted with your mother in room 412? I loved you, he tried. No, I corrected him. You loved what I built. What you failed to build yourself? How many startups did you burn through before marrying me? 5? You're twisting everything. Like you twisted my father's story, used his tragedy against me? I pulled out a small remote and pressed play. The office speakers came alive with his voice. Once she's locked up, we'll restructure everything. Mum's consultant will make sure she's declared unfit. No one will believe anything she says after that. His face crumpled. I'll fight this. We'll fight this. With what? I asked quietly. Your company access is revoked. Your assets are frozen pending investigation. Even your precious vinyl collection. His head snapped up. What about my records? Check our home security footage from this morning, around 7 a.m, the part where I burned them in the backyard. He lunged forward, but security caught him. You bitch! Those were irreplaceable! Like my father's life? I stood up. Like the years I wasted loving you? Security, please remove Mr. Lewis, and make sure to get his outburst on video. It'll go great with the restraining order paperwork. As they dragged him out, I heard him screaming about revenge, about exposing me, about making me pay. Well, Jacqueline said into the silence that followed, I'd say the Lewis family just destroyed themselves. I looked at my father's photo on my desk. No, they destroyed themselves the moment they thought they could use his death to write my ending. The House of Lewis was falling, and I was just getting started. 3, 2, 1, we're live. The studio lights blazed as Dylan Hernandez, the journalist August had tried to conspire with, adjusted his microphone. Tonight, we have an exclusive interview with Peyton Ellis, the tech CEO whose story has captivated the nation. I sat across from him, poised and professional in a steel grey suit. No signs of the unstable executive August had wanted Dylan to write about. Let's start with the recordings, Dylan said. You knew they were plotting against you? I suspected, I replied. When things started disappearing, files, meetings, memories, I remembered my father's story, how they convinced him he was losing his mind. They, being his business partner? Yes, and now my husband and mother-in-law were using the same playbook. I pulled out my phone. Would you like to hear what plotting my institutionalization sounds like? The studio fell silent as August and Rosalind's voices filled the air, discussing rubber walls and forced commitments, planning my downfall over room service. Jesus, Dylan whispered when it ended, and they had no idea you were recording. They were too busy forging documents and bribing fake doctors to notice the fruit bowl in their meeting spot had a friend underneath. My phone buzzed. A text from Helen. August is trying to hold a press conference. It's not going well. I nodded slightly to the producer, who switched one of the studio monitors to live coverage. August stood at a podium, wild-eyed and ranting. She's manipulating everyone, he shouted. She's the one who's unstable. She burned my records, my irreplaceable vinyl collection. Speaking of manipulation, Dylan turned back to me. Your mother-in-law was arrested this morning for evidence tampering, conspiracy, and attempting to access private medical records. Turns out, hiring a fake psychiatrist is very illegal. The monitor showed August growing more unhinged. Security was approaching the podium. You're all blind, he screamed. She's crazy like her father. The feed cut as they dragged him away. Your husband seems distressed, Dylan observed. Ex-husband, I corrected. The divorce papers were served yesterday, along with restraining orders for both him and his mother. You've been busy. Actually, I've been surprisingly productive since I stopped being drugged and gaslit, the studio crew murmured. Dylan leaned forward. They were drugging you? I played another recording. August tampering with my water bottle, laughing with Rosalind about dosage. The toxicology reports are part of the criminal investigation, I said calmly, along with the forged documents, the bribed consultant, and the conspiracy evidence. Why do this interview? Dylan asked. Why not just let the courts handle it? Because somewhere, someone else is being gaslit, being told they're crazy when they're actually being targeted, being manipulated by people who claim to love them. I looked directly into the camera. This story isn't just about me. My phone lit up with messages. The interview was going viral in real time. Hashtags were trending. August's meltdown was everywhere. One last question, Dylan said. Your company's board has mostly resigned. What's next for BridgeSync? A restructure. No more board to manipulate. No more power plays. I smiled. Just innovation and growth, the way my father would have wanted. After the interview, I found Jacqueline waiting in the green room. Rosalind's lawyer called, she said. They want to make a deal. No deals. I checked my phone. August's public meltdown had already spawned dozens of memes. Let them face every charge. They're saying they'll reveal company secrets. What secrets? How we're profitable, how we treat employees well, how we don't need men like August to succeed. A producer rushed in. Ms. Ellis, every major network wants to run your story. And that YouTuber's video of the hotel recordings just hit 5 million views. I thought of August and Rosalind, watching their empire crumble from separate jail cells. Thought of my father, who never got to see his name cleared. Book them all, I told the producer. Every network, every platform. Let's make sure this story reaches everyone who needs to hear it. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Dr. Kelly. Thomas would be proud. You didn't just survive their game. You changed the rules. I touched my father's watch and stepped back into the studio lights. August had wanted to make me a cautionary tale about unstable women in tech. Instead, he and his mother had become a warning about what happens when you underestimate the person you're trying to destroy. The cameras rolled. Time to tell my story. Again and again, until every would-be gaslighter thought twice about lighting that match. The courtroom fell silent as the judge prepared to deliver the verdict. August sat with his expensive legal team, still trying to look confident. Rosalind wasn't present. She'd already accepted a plea deal, turning on her son in exchange for a lighter sentence. In the matter of corporate conspiracy and attempted medical fraud, the judge began, this court finds the defendant guilty on all counts. I watched August's facade crack as the judge continued listing charges. Evidence tampering, forgery, conspiracy to commit fraud. Each guilty verdict hit like a hammer blow. Your Honour, August's lawyer jumped up. We request leniency, considering my client's previous clean record. Previous clean record? I stood, my voice carrying across the courtroom. May I speak? The judge nodded. The defendant's clean record includes 5 failed startups where investors' money mysteriously vanished. He avoided charges by having his mother pay settlements. I pulled out a folder. I have the documentation here. August lunged forward. You vindictive... Sit down, Mr. Lewis. The judge snapped. Ms. Ellis, continue. He tried to destroy me like those companies. But this time, someone was watching. Someone was recording. Someone fought back. The sentence came down hard. 8 years, no possibility of early release. As they led August away, he turned to me one last time. I did love you. No, I replied. You loved what you thought you could take from me. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Dr. Kelly appeared at my side, shielding me from the chaos. Your father's case has been reopened, he said quietly. The evidence from your trial exposed his partner's similar tactics. They're posthumously clearing his name. I gripped his arm, steadying myself. He knew he wasn't crazy. In the end, he knew. And now everyone else knows too. Back at BridgeSync, I found Helen organising a company-wide meeting. The remaining employees filled the conference room, uncertain but hopeful. The old board is gone, I announced. The old power structure is gone. From now on, we run this company as a team. Transparent, accountable, and strong. Jacqueline stepped forward. We're implementing new corporate governance policies. No more hidden meetings. No more backdoor deals. And no more gaslighting, Helen added, drawing applause. My phone buzzed. A news alert. Rosalind's sentencing was complete. 5 years plus mandatory psychiatric evaluation. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Ms. Ellis? A young developer raised her hand. There's something you should see. She pulled up a website. Thousands of stories from people sharing their own experiences with gaslighting and manipulation. Each one referenced my case, my fight back. You started a movement, Jacqueline said softly. I thought of August in his prison jumpsuit, of Rosalind facing her own psychiatric evaluation, of my father's name finally being cleared. No, I replied. We ended one. That evening, I visited my father's grave one last time before the headstone would be updated to remove the stigma of suicide. We did it, Dad, I whispered. We showed them what happens when they try to write our stories for us. A woman approached hesitantly, holding a note. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I had to thank you. Your story gave me courage. I left my gaslighting husband last week. She handed me the note. Inside were similar messages from others, each one a story of escape, of fighting back, of refusing to be erased. Dr. Kelly found me there at sunset, reading the letters. Ready for tomorrow? He asked. I nodded. We transformed his small practice into the Centre for Psychological Abuse Prevention. Tomorrow was the grand opening. August's vinyl collection really was irreplaceable, I mused. But so was my sanity. So was my father's life. So are all the lives they try to break. My phone lit up with a final news alert. August's appeal had been denied. The last desperate attempt to rewrite history had failed. I touched my father's watch one last time before leaving the cemetery. The gaslights had finally gone out. In their place burned something stronger. Truth, justice, and the fire of thousands of voices saying, "Never again." The sun set on the old story as I walked away. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new battles, new victories. But tonight, in the growing darkness, not a single gaslighting flame remained lit. They had tried to make me doubt my mind. Instead, I'd made them face their crimes. They had tried to write my ending. Instead, I'd written their final chapter. And somewhere, in thousands of homes, people were reading our story and finding their own strength to fight back, to speak up, to reclaim their truth. That was the real victory. That was the real ending. That was justice.
I never imagined my wedding day would be the beginning of my greatest nightmare. The moment I walked down the aisle, glowing in my carefully chosen white gown, I thought I was stepping into a fairy tale. But fairy tales, as I soon learned, are only stories. Reality is far more cruel. My husband, Ethan, had always been charming. His smile could light up a room, and his words carried a warmth that made you feel like you were the center of the universe. That's what drew me to him in the first place. But standing there at the altar, I couldn't shake the icy glances from his mother, Vivian, and his older sister, Lila. They sat in the front row, whispering to each other as if sharing some inside joke. My stomach twisted. I brushed it off, telling myself I was being paranoid. The reception was lavish, Vivian's doing, of course. She loved to flaunt her wealth and influence. As I greeted the guests, I noticed how Vivian's friends looked me up and down, their smiles polite but their eyes sharp, assessing. "She's lovely," one woman said to Vivian, loud enough for me to hear, "but she's simple, isn't she?" Vivian's response was a laugh that sent shivers down my spine. Yes, well, not everyone can be extraordinary. I clenched my fists, determined to ignore the sting. This was my wedding day. I refused to let her ruin it. But the real blow came later that night during the first dance. Ethan's family had gathered around, clapping and cheering, but their smiles were laced with mockery. As Ethan twirled me under the lights, I overheard Lila whisper to a cousin, "She doesn't belong here. She's out of her depth." The words pierced me like a knife. My dream day was unraveling. When Ethan and I finally escaped to our hotel suite, I confronted him. "Your family, they don't like me, do they?" He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Don't let them get to you, Kate. They're just protective." Protective? They were mocking me, Ethan. Right there in front of everyone. He kissed my forehead, his tone dismissive. "You're overthinking it. Let's just enjoy tonight." But I couldn't enjoy it. The seeds of doubt had been planted, and they would only grow in the weeks to come. Married life with Ethan was a mix of bliss and bitterness. He was sweet when we were alone, but when his family was around, he transformed into someone else entirely. Vivian's subtle jabs became a daily occurrence, always wrapped in a guise of concern. "Kate, dear," she said one evening during a family dinner, "have you thought about taking etiquette classes? It's just, well, our circles can be quite demanding, and I wouldn't want you to feel out of place." Lila smirked over her glass of wine. "Oh, Mother, don't overwhelm her. She's doing her best, after all." I looked to Ethan for support, but he only gave me a strained smile, his eyes darting away. The breaking point came during a charity gala. Vivian had insisted I attend, even though I felt like a fish out of water among the glittering gowns and polished smiles. As I stood awkwardly by the bar, I overheard Vivian speaking to a group of donors. "She's sweet," she said, her voice dripping with condescension, "but honestly, I expected Ethan to choose someone more refined." Laughter erupted from the group, and my face burned with humiliation. When I confronted Ethan that night, his response was infuriating. "They don't mean anything by it," he said, brushing off my tears. "You're taking it too personally." Despite everything, I tried to fit in. I took Vivian's advice, attending etiquette classes and investing in designer clothes, hoping to earn their approval. But nothing was ever enough. Every effort I made was met with more criticism. One evening, as I sat alone in our apartment, staring at a photo from our honeymoon, something inside me snapped. Why was I bending over backward for people who clearly despised me? Why wasn't Ethan standing up for me? I realized then that I couldn't keep living like this. If they wanted a fight, I would give them one. From that moment of realization, my resolve hardened. I wasn't going to let Vivian, Lila, or anyone else in Ethan's family dictate how I lived my life, or how I felt about myself. If they wanted me to fail, I would give them the fight of their lives. But I quickly learned that standing up to them would come with devastating consequences. My first act of defiance was at a family brunch Vivian hosted at her sprawling estate. The theme was old Hollywood glamour, and I arrived dressed to the nines in a sleek black gown with vintage pearls, channeling Audrey Hepburn. When I walked through the door, all heads turned, and for a moment, I thought I'd won a small victory. Vivian's smile was tight. "Oh, Kate, you made it. I wasn't sure you'd understand the theme." I returned her smile, equally icy. "I never miss an opportunity to shine." Lila snorted into her mimosa, but I ignored her. As the brunch progressed, I held my ground, participating in conversations with poise and confidence. I could see their discomfort, Vivian's forced laughter, Lila's exaggerated eye rolls, but I felt empowered for the first time. Until, of course, they retaliated. After the meal, Vivian pulled me aside, her tone sweet but her words venomous. "I know you're trying, dear, but perhaps it's best to let the more seasoned women handle the social dynamics. You wouldn't want to embarrass yourself, or Ethan." Her words stung, but I didn't let her see it. "Thank you for the advice, Vivian," I said, my voice steady. "But I think I'll manage just fine." The conflict with Vivian and Lila wasn't just between us, it seeped into my marriage. Ethan hated confrontation, and instead of supporting me, he retreated into silence. One night, after another heated dinner with his family, I confronted him. "Why won't you say anything to them?" I demanded, pacing our living room. "They humiliate me, Ethan. In front of you, in front of everyone, and you just sit there." He sighed, rubbing his temples. "What do you want me to do, Kate? They're my family, and what am I?" I shot back, my voice cracking. "Am I not your family too?" His silence was deafening. It became clear that I was on my own. Things escalated at Ethan's company gala, an event I had been dreading but couldn't avoid. Vivian and Lila were, of course, in attendance, along with the elite of the business world. I had meticulously prepared, wearing an elegant emerald gown and practicing conversation starters to hold my own. For most of the evening, I managed to avoid them. But as I stood by the buffet, chatting with one of Ethan's colleagues, I heard a familiar voice. "She's charming, isn't she?" Vivian's tone was syrupy sweet, but her words were daggers. "It's just a shame she doesn't quite understand our world." "Poor thing, she's trying so hard," Lila chimed in, her laughter sharp. "It's like watching a child play dress-up." My heart sank as I realized they were talking about me. Worse, the colleague I was speaking to excused himself awkwardly, clearly uncomfortable with the spectacle Vivian and Lila were making. I couldn't take it anymore. Turning on my heel, I marched straight to their table. "Is there something you'd like to say to me directly?" I demanded, my voice trembling but firm. The room fell silent. Vivian looked up at me with feigned surprise. "Kate, dear, what are you talking about?" "You know exactly what I'm talking about," I said, my hands clenched. "You've been undermining me since the day I married Ethan. I'm done pretending it doesn't bother me." Lila smirked. "Oh, sweetie, don't take things so personally. It's all in good fun." "Fun?" I echoed, my voice rising. "Tearing someone down for your own amusement is fun to you?" Before they could respond, I turned to Ethan, who had been standing frozen by the bar. "And you," I said, my voice breaking, "are you really going to just stand there and let this happen?" He looked at me helplessly, his silence cutting deeper than any insult Vivian or Lila could throw. Humiliated and furious, I left the gala. ignoring Ethan's weak protests as I stormed out. The weeks that followed were a blur of arguments and cold shoulders. Ethan tried to apologize, but his words felt hollow. The rift between us widened with each passing day. One evening, as I sat on the couch scrolling through my phone, a headline caught my eye: Family feud at high society gala, daughter-in-law causes scene. My heart sank as I read the article, complete with quotes from anonymous attendees describing me as overly emotional and out of place. It didn't take a genius to figure out who had leaked the story. Furious, I confronted Ethan. "Your family has crossed a line," I said, shoving the article in his face. "Do you have any idea how humiliating this is?" He looked at the article and sighed. "Kate, you shouldn't have confronted them like that. You know how they are." I stared at him, incredulous. "You're blaming me? They humiliated me, Ethan, publicly, and now they're spreading lies about me to the media." "I'll talk to them," he said weakly, but I knew he wouldn't. For the first time, I started to wonder if I had made a mistake marrying him. Just when I thought I couldn't take it anymore, an unexpected lifeline appeared in the form of Ethan's younger brother, Adam. Unlike the rest of the family, Adam had always been kind to me, but he mostly kept to himself, avoiding the drama that surrounded Vivian and Lila. One afternoon, he called me out of the blue. "I heard about the gala," he said, his voice sympathetic. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry for how they treated you. It's not right." His words brought tears to my eyes. "Thank you, Adam, that means more than you know. You don't deserve this, Kate," he continued, "and you're not alone. If there's anything I can do, just let me know." For the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, I wasn't as alone as I thought. In the weeks that followed, Adam's words lingered in my mind. I had been so consumed by Vivian and Lila's hostility, by Ethan's passivity, that I hadn't considered I might have allies, even within their family. That small spark of hope was enough to keep me going, though I wasn't sure where it would lead. It started with a conversation I didn't realize I needed. Adam invited me for coffee, a rare gesture that I accepted with hesitation. We met at a cozy cafe on the edge of town, far removed from the world of high society luncheons and gala drama. "I don't get it," I admitted after we'd exchanged pleasantries. "Why are you sticking your neck out for me? You're Vivian's son too." Adam stirred his coffee thoughtfully. "You're right, I am, but I'm also tired of seeing her treat people like pawns in her game. You're not the first person she's tried to tear down, but you're the first one who stood up to her." His words both comforted and unsettled me. I don't feel like I'm standing up to her. Most days, it feels like I'm barely holding on. "That's because you're fighting alone," he said simply. "You shouldn't have to." Adam's support emboldened me in ways I hadn't anticipated. Together, we began to strategize ways to reclaim my dignity and stand up to Vivian and Lila. It wasn't about vengeance, it was about drawing boundaries and demanding respect. "You can't play their game," Adam advised during one of our many conversations. "They'll always have the upper hand, but you can change the rules." "How?" I asked, skeptical but intrigued. "By showing them they can't control you. Start by building your own network, your own reputation. Show them, and Ethan, that you don't need their approval." It was a daunting idea, but the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. I had been so focused on fitting into their world that I had lost sight of my own strengths. It was time to change that. The first step was reconnecting with who I was before I met Ethan. I dusted off my old portfolio and began freelancing as a graphic designer, a career I had put on hold after our wedding. Slowly but surely, I rebuilt my confidence, landing a few small but meaningful clients. Vivian and Lila, of course, caught wind of my efforts and wasted no time belittling them. "Oh, how quaint," Lila remarked at a dinner party. "A little hobby to keep you busy." I smiled sweetly, refusing to take the bait. "Actually, it's a full-time career, and it's going quite well, thank you." Their barbs didn't sting as much anymore. I was learning to see them for what they were: insecure, manipulative women who thrived on making others feel small. But the real turning point came during yet another family gathering, a charity event Vivian was hosting at her estate. Adam had encouraged me to attend, not to prove anything to them but to myself. The evening started predictably enough, with Vivian and Lila playing their usual games of thinly veiled insults and backhanded compliments. But things escalated when Vivian, in a theatrical show of generosity, announced a sizable donation to the charity on behalf of the entire family. She then turned to me with a saccharine smile. "Kate, dear, would you like to say a few words on behalf of Ethan and yourself?" It was a trap, and I knew it. If I declined, I'd look ungrateful. If I accepted, I'd be stepping into her spotlight. But this time, I was ready. I took the microphone. my heart pounding but my voice steady. "Thank you, Vivian, for your generous donation," I began. "It's truly inspiring to see such support for a cause so close to my heart." I paused, meeting her gaze. "In fact, Ethan and I have also made a contribution, one that reflects our personal values and priorities. Because at the end of the day, what truly matters is not just the size of the donation, but the sincerity behind it." The room erupted in polite applause, but the look on Vivian's face was priceless. For the first time, I had outmaneuvered her on her own turf. After the event, Ethan pulled me aside, his expression unreadable. "Where did that come from?" he asked, not unkindly. "What do you mean?" I replied, feigning innocence. "You were so composed. Confident. It's not like you." I bristled at his words, but chose to see the silver lining. "Maybe it's who I've always been, Ethan. You just haven't noticed." To my surprise, he didn't argue. Instead, he seemed thoughtful, almost introspective. It was the first time in months I felt like he was truly seeing me. In the days following the event, I continued to focus on my work and personal growth, refusing to let Vivian and Lila's antics consume me. Adam remained a steadfast ally, offering encouragement and advice when I needed it most. But the real breakthrough came when Ethan finally confronted his mother. "I've been thinking about what you said at the event," he told me one evening. "And you're right. I've let them control us too much. That stops now." Hearing those words felt like a weight lifting off my shoulders. For the first time, it felt like we were on the same team. Vivian and Lila didn't change overnight, of course. But they began to sense that their grip on Ethan, and me, was loosening. I stopped engaging with their drama, and Ethan started standing up for me in small but meaningful ways. It wasn't a perfect resolution, but it was progress. And for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful about the future. Vivian's control didn't dissipate easily. True to form, she staged one last attempt to reassert her dominance. She orchestrated a lavish gala under the guise of celebrating Ethan's business success, but used it as an opportunity to showcase her influence over her family. As the night unfolded, it became clear that I was the centerpiece of her unspoken narrative. She made subtle jabs about my career, my background, and even our marriage. Lila, ever her mother's loyal soldier, followed suit. But this time, I didn't crumble. "I have to hand it to you, Vivian," I said, my voice calm but firm. "You know how to command attention. But I think it's time we all stop pretending that your way is the only way." The room fell silent, the weight of my words settling over the crowd. Vivian's eyes narrowed, her composure slipping for just a moment before she recovered with a brittle smile. "I only want what's best for my son," she replied, her tone icy. "And so do I said. "But what's best for him, and for us, is to build a life on our terms, not yours." To my surprise and relief, Ethan stepped forward, his hand gently resting on my shoulder. "Kate's right," he said, his voice steady. "It's time I stop letting you dictate how we live our lives. I love you, Mom, but we're building something together, and we need space to do that." Vivian looked as though she'd been struck. For years, she had wielded her authority without question, and now her son, the one she'd always counted on, was drawing a line. The power dynamic shifted in that moment, and everyone in the room felt it. Life didn't transform overnight, but the changes were palpable. Vivian and Lila, while still formidable, no longer had the same hold over us. They tested boundaries occasionally, but Ethan and I held firm, presenting a united front. My career flourished as I took on bigger projects and found a supportive community of peers and mentors. Ethan, inspired by my independence, started exploring ways to step out of his mother's shadow in his own professional life. Our relationship grew stronger too. We learned to communicate better, to lean on each other rather than pulling away when things got tough. The challenges we had faced together became the foundation for something deeper and more resilient. Adam remained a trusted confidant, offering wisdom and humor when we needed it most. He even helped bridge the gap between us and Vivian, softening her sharp edges over time. "She'll never admit it," Adam told me one day, "but she respects you. You stood up to her in a way no one else ever has." It wasn't the kind of victory I had once imagined. There were no dramatic apologies or sudden transformations. But I had learned that true strength didn't come from forcing others to change. It came from staying true to myself, no matter the opposition. One afternoon, as I worked on a new design project in the home office Ethan and I had renovated together, I paused to take it all in. The sunlight streaming through the windows, the hum of Ethan's laughter from the next room as he played with our dog, the quiet peace of knowing I was exactly where I was meant to be. The journey had been messy, painful, and at times overwhelming. But it had also been worth it. I had found my voice, my purpose, and a love that was stronger for the trials it had endured. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was thriving. Clara exhaled heavily as she folded the last piece of laundry in their cramped apartment. It had been a grueling day at school, and all she longed for was a quiet evening. Reaching for Mark's jacket to toss it in the wash, her hand stilled. A crumpled envelope peeked out of the pocket. Curiosity tugged at her, and she pulled it free, smoothing out the creases. Her heart sank. Eviction notice. The bold red letters at the top hit her like a punch to the chest. The letter spelled out that they were 3 months behind on rent. Clara's mind raced. How could this have happened? She had trusted Mark to handle the bills while she managed their household. Mark, she called, her voice trembling, not with anger, but fear. Mark appeared in the doorway, his easy smile fading as soon as he saw the paper in her hands. What's this? Clara demanded, her voice unsteady. Mark hesitated, rubbing the back of his neck, a telltale sign of his nervousness. I can explain, he began, but Clara cut him off. Explain what? That we're about to lose our home? That you've been hiding this from me for months? Mark stepped forward, reaching for the notice. Clara, listen, it's not what you think. I had to help Sophia. She needed money for the kids' school fees, and then the car broke down. Clara's eyes widened in disbelief. You gave our rent money to your sister? She's been struggling since her husband passed, Mark said defensively. I couldn't just let her go under. Clara's anger surged. So instead, you decided to let us go under? She waved the notice in his face. Did you think I wouldn't find out? Or were you planning to wait until we were out on the street? Mark tried to take her hands, but she pulled away. I was going to fix it, he said, his voice quieter now. I've been working extra hours. I thought I could catch up before it got this far. Fix it? Clara repeated, her voice rising. With what money, Mark? Our savings are gone, aren't they? Mark's silence was all the confirmation she needed. Clara turned away, her thoughts spiraling. Their home, their life, it all felt like a lie. And for what? So Sophia could keep up appearances? Her phone buzzed, snapping her out of her thoughts. It was a text from Sophia herself. Can't wait for family dinner tomorrow. Love you both. The irony stung, and Clara let out a bitter laugh. Sophia, who was supposedly struggling, had time to plan dinners while they faced eviction. I can fix this, Mark said again, his voice pleading now. I just need more time. Clara stared at him, the man she'd married 5 years ago, now a stranger. You made your choice, Mark, she said coldly. And it wasn't me. Mark froze in the doorway as Clara turned back to the laundry. She didn't know how they would get through this, but one thing was certain, the trust between them had shattered. The next morning, Clara woke early. Sleep had been elusive, her mind replaying the events of the night before. The eviction notice sat on the kitchen counter, glaring at her like a bad omen. She sipped her coffee, staring at it, her thoughts a tangled mess. How had they gotten to this point? Had she been blind to Mark's actions, too trusting to see the warning signs? Mark was still asleep, or pretending to be. Clara didn't care. She needed space. Grabbing her bag, she left the apartment, letting the door slam behind her. Her destination was clear, Tina. Tina's office was in the heart of downtown Portland. Clara had barely texted her friend a brief summary of the situation before Tina called back, her tone sharp and concerned. Get here. Now. When Clara arrived, Tina was waiting outside, leaning against the building with 2 steaming cups of coffee in hand. This better be a joke, Tina said, handing one to Clara as they started walking. I wish it was, Clara muttered. She recounted everything, the eviction notice, the drained savings, Mark's excuses, and Sophia's constant demands. Tina listened silently, her expression darkening with every word. When Clara finished, Tina stopped walking and turned to face her. You're telling me Mark gave away your savings without telling you? While you're working yourself to the bone to keep things afloat? Yes, Clara whispered. Saying it out loud only made the betrayal cut deeper. Tina sighed, shaking her head. This isn't just a bad decision, Clara. It's a betrayal. He didn't even give you a chance to weigh in, he just took from you. Clara's throat tightened. I keep asking myself why he didn't trust me enough to tell me. I could have helped figure something out. Because he didn't want to hear no, Tina said bluntly. It's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission, especially when he's trying to please Sophia. The mention of Sophia made Clara's blood boil. She's been living with us for months, Tina. Months? I thought she was trying to get back on her feet, Clara said, her voice tight. But now it feels like she's just using us, and Mark's letting her. Tina gave her a long look. You need to figure out where your line is, Clara. What's the limit before you've had enough? Clara didn't answer. She wasn't sure where her limit was yet, but she knew she was getting close. That evening, Clara returned home to find Sophia sprawled on the couch, scrolling through her phone. The television blared a reality show in the background, and the faint smell of popcorn lingered in the air. Her 2 young children darted around the living room, toys scattered everywhere. Clara. Sophia called brightly, as if everything was fine. Dinner's almost ready. Hope you don't mind, I used that fancy pasta you bought last week. The kids were craving something special. Clara clenched her jaw. Fancy pasta. The same pasta she and Mark had been saving for a rare date night. Forcing a tight smile, she replied, no problem, and walked into the kitchen, where Mark was stirring a pot on the stove. He looked up, guilt etched across his face. Clara, not now, she cut him off, her voice sharp. She grabbed a glass of water and left, ignoring the tension that clung to the air like a storm cloud. The next day, Clara sat in her classroom during her lunch break, staring at her phone. A notification had popped up from Sophia's Instagram account. Against her better judgment, she opened it. The post showed Sophia's kids in brand new outfits, holding shopping bags from an upscale mall. The caption read, "Fresh start, new beginnings, so blessed." Clara's stomach churned. How could Sophia flaunt expensive purchases while they were on the brink of eviction? Frustration bubbled up inside her, and she texted Tina immediately, "Wine, my place, tonight." Tina arrived that evening with 2 bottles of red wine and a grim expression. As Clara vented, pouring out the details of Sophia's latest outrage, Tina shook her head. She's bragging about her life on Instagram while draining yours? And Mark just stands by and lets her? Exactly, Clara exclaimed. Then stop letting him, Tina said firmly, pouring Clara a generous glass of wine. You don't owe them anything, Clara. If they're going to treat you like a doormat, it's time to show them the door. Clara stared at the swirling wine in her glass. Tina was right, but it wasn't that simple. She had loved Mark. She had trusted him. Letting go of their life together wasn't a decision she could take lightly. The family dinner the following evening was everything Clara had expected, and worse. Sophia arrived early with a casserole dish, immediately taking charge of the kitchen as if it were her home. Mark hovered around her, eager to help and hanging on her every word. Sophia played the role of the grieving widow, her children once again the center of attention. Clara sat through it all in silence, her appetite gone. She listened as Sophia's mother, Linda, praised Mark for being such a good brother and scolded Clara for not being more understanding of family struggles. Finally, Clara had enough. She set her fork down with a sharp clink and looked directly at Sophia. Do you want to tell everyone the truth, or should I? The room fell silent. Sophia blinked, feigning innocence. What do you mean? I mean the truth about where the money really went, the shopping, the trips, the expensive meals, Clara said, her voice steady, despite the anger simmering beneath the surface. The money Mark took from me to give to you. Linda gasped, her hand flying to her chest. Mark's face drained of color, and he looked as though he wanted to disappear. Sophia's face hardened. I don't know what you're talking about. Clara pulled her phone from her pocket, opened the screenshots of Sophia's Instagram posts, and slid it across the table. Don't you? Because this doesn't look like someone who's struggling. Sophia glanced at the screen, her face pale. I was going to pay it back, she stammered. When? Clara demanded. After we were homeless? You've been lying to us this whole time, Sophia, using your kids as an excuse to live off us while we fall apart. Linda tried to interject, but Clara held up a hand. No, Linda, you don't get to lecture me about family loyalty when your daughter has been stealing from me. The table was silent. Clara stood, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. I'm done, she said, her voice firm. I won't let you drag me down with you. Without waiting for a response, she walked out, leaving them to sit in the mess they had created. Back at the apartment, Clara began packing her things. She didn't know what her next step would be, but one thing was certain, she couldn't stay. As she folded clothes into a suitcase, Mark appeared in the doorway, his voice heavy with emotion. Clara, please don't do this, we can fix it. She looked at him, the man she had once loved so deeply, now a stranger. You made your choice, Mark, she said quietly, and it wasn't me. Mark's shoulders slumped as Clara zipped up her suitcase. The weight of his betrayal hung heavy between them, and Clara knew it was a burden she could no longer carry. Tina placed a steady hand on Clara's shoulder. You're not walking away, Clara, you're rebuilding. Trust me, this time, you're going to build something so much stronger. The next day, Clara's phone buzzed with a message from Mark. It was brief and to the point. Can we talk? Just us. Clara stared at the text for a long moment, her emotions swirling in a storm of anger, sadness, and curiosity. Part of her wanted to ignore it entirely. Another part, the part that remembered the man she'd fallen in love with, wanted answers. After a deep breath, she typed back, fine, tomorrow, at the park. The following afternoon, Clara arrived early at the park. She sat on a bench beneath a sprawling oak tree, her hands stuffed in her coat pockets as the chilly Portland air nipped at her cheeks. She watched children laughing and playing on the nearby playground, their joy a bittersweet reminder of simpler times. Mark arrived a few minutes later, looking tired and disheveled. His once pristine appearance had given way to wrinkled clothes and a shadow of stubble. Thanks for meeting me, he said quietly, sitting beside her. Clara didn't respond right away. She kept her gaze on the playground, watching a father push his daughter on a swing. Finally, she turned to Mark, her expression hard. What do you want? Mark sighed, running a hand through his messy hair. I messed up, Clara, I know I did. I should have told you about the money, the bills, everything. I thought I could fix it on my own. By lying to me? Clara shot back, her voice sharp. By taking our savings without even asking? Mark flinched as if her words physically struck him. I didn't mean to hurt you, I was just trying to help. Sophia, she's been through so much. Losing her husband, raising 2 kids alone. And what about me, Mark? Clara interrupted, her voice rising. What about us? Do you think this hasn't been hard for me too? I was your partner, you were supposed to trust me. Instead, you chose to betray me. I didn't see it that way, Mark said quietly, his voice tinged with regret. I thought I was doing the right thing. For who? Clara asked, her eyes narrowing. Because it sure wasn't for us. Mark looked down at his hands, his shoulders slumping. You're right, he admitted. I let my guilt over Sophia's situation cloud my judgment. I put her needs above yours, above ours. And I'm sorry. Clara shook her head, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. Sorry doesn't fix this, Mark. Sorry doesn't pay the rent or undo the damage you've done. I know, Mark said, his voice earnest, but I want to make it right. I've started therapy. I've been talking to my boss about taking on extra work to pay back what I took. I'm trying, Clara. Clara stared at him, searching his face for a glimpse of the man she had once trusted implicitly. She could see the regret in his eyes, but regret wasn't enough. Trust, once broken, wasn't so easily repaired. I appreciate that you're trying, she said finally, but I don't know if I can forgive you for this. Mark nodded slowly, as if he'd been expecting her response. I understand, but I'm not giving up on us, Clara, not yet. Clara didn't reply. She wasn't sure what to say. Part of her wanted to believe him, to cling to the hope that they could rebuild what had been lost. But another part, the part that had been betrayed, wasn't ready to let go of her anger. Later that evening, Clara returned to the apartment for the first time in days. Mark wasn't home, but Sophia was. She sat on the couch, her children playing quietly on the floor. When Clara walked in, Sophia looked up, her expression a mix of guilt and defiance. Clara, Sophia said hesitantly, standing as if to greet her. Can we talk? Clara crossed her arms, leaning against the doorframe. What is there to talk about, Sophia? You've already said enough with your actions. Sophia wrung her hands nervously. I know I've messed up. I know I've taken advantage of you and Mark. And I'm sorry. Are you? Clara asked coldly, because it didn't seem like you were sorry when you were posting pictures of your shopping trips and new clothes while we were struggling to keep a roof over our heads. Sophia winced, her shoulders slumping. I was trying to keep up appearances. After Tom died, I didn't know how to handle everything, the bills, the kids, the loneliness. It all felt like too much, so I made bad choices. Bad choices that hurt other people, Clara said, her tone unyielding. Do you even realize the position you've put us in? I do now, Sophia said, her voice cracking. I've been selfish, and I see that now. I want to make things right, Clara. Clara studied her sister-in-law for a long moment. There was sincerity in Sophia's voice, but Clara wasn't ready to forgive, not yet. Then start by fixing your own life, Clara said firmly. Stop expecting others to carry you while you drag them down, because I'm done. Sophia nodded, tears welling in her eyes. I will, I promise. Clara didn't respond. Instead, she turned and walked to her room, shutting the door behind her. For the first time in months, she felt a flicker of peace, not from reconciliation, but from drawing her boundaries and reclaiming her space. Sophia stood with tears streaming down her face, her voice trembling with sincerity. I will, Clara, I promise I'll make things right. Clara stared at her, unsure whether to believe the words. Sophia had always been good at playing the victim, but this time there was something different in her tone, something genuine. We'll see, Clara said finally, her voice steady. Actions speak louder than words. Sophia, if you really want to make things right, show me. Sophia nodded, wiping her tears. I will, I promise. That night, Clara sat alone in the apartment, her mind racing. The confrontation with Sophia had left her drained but also strangely hopeful. Maybe, just maybe, things could change, but she knew better than to let her guard down. Promises were easy to make, but much harder to keep. As she stared out the window at the city lights, Clara realized one thing with clarity: she needed to prioritize herself. She couldn't keep sacrificing her happiness and stability for others. It was time to take control of her own life. With a renewed sense of determination, she picked up her phone and started making a plan. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing for sure: no one else would dictate her path again. A week later, Clara sat in the corner booth of a small coffee shop in downtown Portland, a familiar spot from her marriage to Mark. This time, however, the visit felt different. She had requested to meet him here, not to rekindle anything, but to find closure for the unresolved. Mark arrived a few minutes late, his shoulders slightly hunched, his expression weary. He spotted Clara and gave her a hesitant wave before approaching the table. Hey, he said, sitting down across from her. Clara nodded, folding her hands on the table. Hey. The silence between them was heavy. Clara studied him for a moment. He looked thinner, older, as if the weight of everything had finally caught up with him. It wasn't anger she felt toward him anymore, just a quiet sadness. I wanted to talk about what happens next, she said finally, her voice calm but firm. It's time to make decisions. Mark nodded, his eyes dropping to the coffee cup in front of him. I get it. I've been thinking about it too. I've been staying at a motel for now, but I found a roommate situation that's more permanent. Clara raised her eyebrows. A roommate? Yeah, Mark said softly. I need to figure out who I am without everything else, without Mom's influence, without Sophia leaning on me. I've started therapy too. That's a good step, Clara said, surprised by his candor. Mark met her gaze for the first time. I know I can't undo what I've done, Clara, but I want you to know I'm sorry, for breaking your trust, for not putting you first, for all of it. Clara nodded slowly. I appreciate that, Mark, but this isn't just about apologies, it's about actions. I need to move forward, and I can't do that if I'm tied to this mess. Mark looked away, his jaw tightening. Does that mean you're filing for divorce? Clara exhaled. She had thought long and hard about this. Yes, she said finally. It's what's best for both of us. We need to start over separately. Mark nodded, his expression pained but accepting. I understand. I don't want to hold you back anymore. For the first time in months, Clara felt a small weight lift off her shoulders. The decision, though painful, felt right. A week later, Clara was back at the apartment. boxing up her belongings. Mark had already moved out, leaving her the space to pack in peace. Sophia and her kids had left too, opting to stay with Linda temporarily. The quiet was both eerie and comforting. As she packed, Clara found an envelope tucked into one of the kitchen drawers. It was addressed to her, the handwriting unmistakably Sophia's. She opened it cautiously, expecting yet another apology. Instead, she found a check and a short note. Clara, I know this doesn't fix everything, but it's a start. I've been working and saving, and I'm going to pay back every cent I owe you. Thank you for being the one who forced me to wake up. You didn't have to, but you did. I'll never forget it. Sophia. Clara stared at the check, her emotions a mix of surprise and disbelief. It wasn't a large amount, but it was a step, a tangible effort to repair the damage. Months passed. Clara moved into a small one-bedroom apartment across town, closer to her school. The space was modest but cozy, filled with sunlight and the hum of new beginnings. She began focusing on herself for the first time in years, rediscovering hobbies she had once loved, like painting and hiking. Tina remained her constant support, their friendship growing even stronger. One evening, as Clara sat on her balcony, sketching the city skyline, her phone buzzed. It was a text from Tina. You're going to want to see this. Check Sophia's Instagram. Clara hesitated before opening the app. Sophia had been quiet on social media for months, but her latest post showed her kids at a park, smiling wide as they played. The caption read, "Starting fresh, new job, new outlook, grateful for second chances." Clara stared at the screen, a small smile tugging at her lips. Maybe, just maybe, Sophia was turning things around. A year after everything had fallen apart, Clara found herself back at the same coffee shop, but this time for a different reason. She was meeting Tina to celebrate a milestone, her promotion to department head at her school. As Clara sipped her coffee, she thought about how far she had come. The pain of betrayal had lessened, replaced by a quiet strength. She no longer felt defined by the mistakes of others. Instead, she had rebuilt her life on her terms. "Here's to starting over," Tina said, raising her mug in a toast. Clara clinked her mug against Tina's, a genuine smile on her face. "Here's to growth." Outside the coffee shop, the city buzzed with life. Clara watched as people hurried past, each carrying their own stories of struggle and resilience. For the first time in a long time, she felt at peace, no longer burdened by the weight of betrayal. She was free to embrace the future, a future she had built with her own strength and determination. While I was watching TV, my husband stormed in, his face darkening with rage after my mother-in-law whispered something to him. Without warning, he shouted, "Why are you wasting time?" and smashed the TV, my father's treasured gift, on my head. Blood streamed down as I pleaded for help, but he showed no mercy. Dragging me by my hair, he hurled me out of the house, leaving me trembling in the cold. Shaking and desperate, I called my brother, Daniel. When he arrived, the nightmare only deepened. What followed was more terrifying than I could have ever imagined. My name is Harper Collins, and this is the story I never thought I'd live to tell, a journey through love, betrayal, and finding strength amidst unimaginable pain. 3 years ago, if someone had told me I'd be recounting this, I wouldn't have believed them. Life has a way of surprising us, doesn't it? It all began when I met Jonathan Carter. At 26, I was living in Seattle, working as a graphic designer. My life was simple, steady, until Jonathan walked in. He was a 30-year-old banker, effortlessly charming and attentive, making me feel like the most important person in the world. Our whirlwind romance was filled with candlelit dinners, waterfront walks, and long conversations about our dreams. 6 months later, when he proposed, I said yes without hesitation. Friends called us the perfect couple, and I believed them, but perfection is often an illusion. After the wedding, we moved into a beautiful house in a quiet neighborhood. It felt like a dream come true. I poured myself into building our life together, cooking Jonathan's favorite meals and making our home warm and inviting. He worked long hours, and though I missed him, I told myself it was for our future. The cracks began to show when his mother, Patricia, moved in a few months after the wedding. Officially, she was there to help out, but her presence quickly revealed itself as controlling. A retired schoolteacher in her late 50s, Patricia carried an air of authority. She criticized everything, how I managed the house, dressed, and even cooked. Despite my efforts to get along, nothing pleased her. Worse, Jonathan always sided with her. "Mom's just trying to help," he'd say dismissively. One night, After a long day of chores, I settled on the sofa to watch TV. It was a small comfort, reminding me of my late father. The TV had been his gift to me, and it brought a sense of peace. That evening, Jonathan came home late, looking tired but greeting me with a brief smile. For a moment, I hoped for a calm night. Then Patricia appeared, whispering something in his ear. His expression shifted instantly, his eyes cold and angry. "Get up," he barked. "Go to the kitchen and make me a fresh meal." Confused, I replied, "Dinner is ready. I kept it warm for you." "I don't want that," he snapped. "I want something fresh, now." Exhausted, I hesitated. "Jonathan, I've been on my feet all day. Can't you?" Before I could finish, he erupted. "How dare you talk back to me?" He crossed the room in a fury, grabbing the TV, my father's TV. He lifted it above his head and slammed it down. The corner struck me, and pain exploded through my skull. I crumpled to the floor, blood trickling as shock paralyzed me. "Maybe this will teach you to obey me," he growled. Patricia stood nearby, arms crossed, a smug look on her face. "You don't deserve to live here if you can't respect us," she sneered. Bleeding and trembling, I begged for help, but they were merciless. Jonathan dragged me to the door and shoved me outside into the cold night. With nowhere else to go, I called Daniel. When he answered, I broke down. "Daniel, please, I need help." "I'm coming," he said firmly. "Where are you?" When he arrived, his face was a mix of worry and fury. He helped me into his car and drove straight to the hospital. "We're going to fix this," he said, gripping the wheel tightly. "He's not getting away with this." As the doctor tended to my wounds, a flicker of hope emerged. I didn't have to endure this anymore. This was the beginning of a new chapter, one where I would fight for myself, no matter the cost. I hesitated, unsure where to begin, but I knew I had to tell Daniel everything. Taking a deep breath, I started from the beginning, recounting every instance of Patricia's interference, Jonathan's growing coldness, and my desperate attempts to please them, hoping things would improve. Finally, I described the horrifying moment when Jonathan smashed the TV on my head. Daniel listened intently, his fists clenched and jaw tight. By the time I finished, he was seething. "He's a monster," Daniel said, his voice low and full of rage. "And his mother is no better. Harper, you can't go back there, ever." "I know," I whispered, tears streaming down my face, "but what can I do? They've made it clear I don't belong there. I don't even have my belongings." "Forget your things," Daniel said firmly. "What matters is your safety. We'll figure the rest out. But first, we're going to make sure they pay for what they've done to you." I nodded, feeling a mixture of fear and relief. For the first time in months, I felt like I wasn't alone. Daniel was my rock, and I knew he wouldn't let me face this battle on my own. Over the next few days, I stayed with Daniel, trying to recover both physically and emotionally. He helped me file for divorce, a daunting but liberating process. Cutting ties with Jonathan felt like reclaiming a part of myself I had lost. Yet, as freeing as it wasn't enough. Anger and humiliation burned inside me. I wanted justice. One evening, as I sat in Daniel's living room, I said, "I want to do more than just leave him. I want to expose him for what he really is." Daniel's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "What do you mean?" "I mean he's not the man he pretends to be," I said, my voice trembling but resolute. "I've always had this feeling he's hiding something, the late hours, the unexplained phone calls. It doesn't add up." Daniel nodded slowly. "You might be right. If he's hiding something, we'll find it. Let's dig deeper." That's when we decided to hire a private investigator. Daniel found Jack Lewis, a seasoned professional with a reputation for uncovering the truth. When we met with Jack, I explained my suspicions about Jonathan's activities at the bank. Jack listened carefully, took detailed notes, and promised to begin investigating immediately. The waiting was agonizing. Every day, I wondered what Jack would uncover. Part of me worried I was overreacting, but another part, the part that had endured Jonathan's lies, knew there was something dark beneath the surface. 2 weeks later, Jack called. "I've found something," he said. "Can we meet in person?" My heart pounded as Daniel and I drove to Jack's office. When we arrived, Jack laid out the evidence he had gathered. The truth was worse than I had imagined. Jonathan wasn't just controlling, he was a criminal. He had been embezzling money from the bank, laundering it through fake accounts, and funneling it into offshore holdings. Jack presented documents, account statements, and surveillance photos. It was undeniable. I stared at the evidence, my mind reeling. "I knew he was hiding something," I said softly. "This is huge," Daniel said, his voice filled with determination. "We're taking this to the authorities." Jack nodded. "You should, but be careful. People like Jonathan don't react well when they're cornered." A chill ran down my spine, but I knew Jack was right. Jonathan was dangerous, and this was no longer just about me. His actions had hurt others, and I couldn't let him continue. The next day, Daniel and I went to the police with Jack's evidence. Detective Rebecca Hayes, the officer assigned to the case, listened carefully as we presented everything. "This is solid," she said, flipping through the files. "We'll start an investigation immediately." Leaving the station, I felt a mix of fear, relief, and empowerment. For so long, I had felt trapped, helpless. Now, I was fighting back, and for the first time in a long time, I believed I could win. The days after meeting Detective Hayes were a blur of nervous energy. The police took over the investigation, and I anxiously awaited updates. Jack's words echoed in my mind: "Jonathan is dangerous." I tried to stay busy, throwing myself into anything that could distract me. Daniel, as always, was my rock, offering constant support, but even his reassurances couldn't fully quell my fears. I knew that once Jonathan discovered the investigation, there would be no turning back. About a week later, Detective Hayes called us in. When we arrived, she gestured for us to sit. "We've made significant progress," she said, opening a folder on her desk. "Thanks to the evidence your investigator provided, we've confirmed Jonathan is involved in a large-scale money laundering operation. He's been embezzling funds for over 2 years, using shell companies to cover his tracks. The scope of his crimes is massive." Hearing it spelled out left me breathless. "What happens now?" I asked, my voice shaky. "We've built a strong case against him," Detective Hayes replied. "We're monitoring his movements and preparing to make an arrest. But you need to be careful. Once he realizes the net is closing, he might try to contact you, or worse." I nodded, gripping the edge of my chair. "I won't let him get to me," I said, though deep down, I was terrified. As we left the station, Daniel turned to me. "You're handling this incredibly well, Harper." For the first time in a long time, I felt a spark of pride. I was fighting back, and I wasn't going to stop until justice was served. The weight of everything settled on me as I sat in Daniel's living room, staring out the window. My thoughts drifted back to the beginning, when Jonathan had held my hand, promised me happiness, and made me believe in a future together. How could the same man who once vowed to love and protect me turn into someone who destroyed everything we had, smashed a TV over my head, and embezzled millions? The betrayal was unfathomable, but instead of breaking me, it steeled my resolve. He had taken enough. Now, he had to face the consequences. The days leading to Jonathan's arrest were tense. I couldn't stop imagining how he would react. Would he lash out or play innocent? A part of me dreaded the confrontation, but a stronger part, one I barely recognized, wanted to see him fall. When Detective Hayes called to inform me that Jonathan had been taken into custody, I felt a rush of emotions. "He didn't resist," she said, "but he's claiming innocence, saying it's all a misunderstanding." "Of course he is," I replied bitterly. It was so like Jonathan to paint himself as the victim. Still, knowing he was behind bars, even temporarily, gave me a sense of safety I hadn't felt in months. Preparing for the trial was grueling. Memories of Jonathan haunted me, his disdainful glares, the nights I cried myself to sleep, and the moment he threw me out, bleeding and broken. But those memories, as painful as they were, strengthened me. I was determined to stand up, not just for myself, but for anyone who had ever felt powerless. The day of the trial came quickly. The courtroom, with its high ceilings and somber atmosphere, was intimidating. I sat next to Daniel, clutching his hand as Jonathan was brought in. He looked calm, even smug, as if he believed he could manipulate his way out of this. But as the prosecution laid out the evidence, documents, surveillance photos, and Jack's testimony, his composure faltered. When it was my turn to testify, I walked to the stand on shaky legs, but spoke with a steady heart. I recounted everything: the abuse, the lies, and the night he smashed the TV over my head. My voice wavered at times, but I didn't stop. I refused to let him silence me again. Jonathan's defense tried to paint me as a bitter ex-wife, but the evidence against him was overwhelming. By the end of the trial, it was clear to everyone in the courtroom that he was guilty. The judge's verdict was swift. Jonathan was convicted on multiple counts of embezzlement, money laundering, and fraud. He was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. As the gavel struck, a wave of relief washed over me. Jonathan couldn't hurt me anymore. Walking out of the courthouse with Daniel, the sun shone brightly, but I still felt the weight of everything sinking in. You did it, Harper, Daniel said, his voice full of pride. You stood up to him. I nodded, my throat tight with emotion. I couldn't have done it without you. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. Moving forward wasn't easy. The scars, both physical and emotional, remained. And there were nights when I woke up reliving his violence. But each day, I reminded myself of my strength. I had survived. Reclaiming my independence became a crucial part of my healing. I moved into a small one-bedroom apartment in downtown Seattle. It wasn't much, but it was mine, a space free from Jonathan's shadow. Work became another refuge. Pouring myself into design projects helped rebuild my confidence. My boss, always supportive, gave me opportunities to grow, and with each success, I proved to myself that I was capable. Through it all, Daniel remained by my side, my constant source of strength. Whether he was bringing groceries or simply sitting with me, his presence reminded me that I wasn't alone. One day, I came across a photo from my wedding. In it, Jonathan smiled at me, his arm wrapped around my waist. I stared at it, trying to reconcile the man in the photo with the monster he became. Finally, I tore it in half and threw it away. It felt symbolic, like I was finally letting go of the version of him I had once loved. Jonathan's sentencing sent shockwaves through the community. His crimes made headlines, and the bank issued a public apology for its oversight. Patricia, his mother, moved away, likely out of embarrassment. Part of me wanted to confront her, but I realized it wasn't worth my energy. My focus was better spent on myself and my future. One evening, Daniel and I went out to celebrate at a small Italian restaurant. As we clinked glasses, he raised a toast. To your freedom. To my freedom, I echoed, smiling, a genuine smile from a place of peace. Looking back now, I see how far I've come. What happened to me was horrific, but it didn't break me. It taught me that I deserve better, that I have a voice, and that no matter how dark things seem, there's always a way out. Jonathan underestimated me. He underestimated my strength. Now, as I look ahead, I know one thing for certain: I'm free to live, to dream, and to build a life on my own terms. That, to me, is the greatest victory of all. My name is Abigail, and I am 25 years old. Yesterday marked a significant milestone in my life. I married my partner of 4 years in an intimate backyard ceremony, perfectly timed to coincide with our 4th anniversary. Though the wedding was small, its importance made postponement unthinkable. Every detail, from decorations to catering, had been carefully arranged, underscoring how impractical it would have been to reschedule. Yet, the day was bittersweet. My father, who was meant to walk me down the aisle, was absent. Initially, he claimed a medical emergency, but under pressure, he confessed the truth. He had chosen to attend a rare camping trip with my brother, who only visits a few weeks each year. His decision felt like a prioritization of my brother over me, and his dismissive suggestion that rescheduling would be easy only deepened my hurt. In his absence, my stepdad walked me down the aisle. It was a touching moment, but it carried a weight of emotion that shouldn't have been there. When my father arrived after the ceremony, he was visibly moved by the photos. Realizing the magnitude of what he had missed, we had a raw, emotional conversation that culminated in his tearful request for a second ceremony as a way to make amends. The situation left me conflicted. While I was deeply hurt by his initial decision, I was also pained by the regret and guilt he felt afterward. The day, which should have been filled solely with joy, became a reflection of the complicated dynamics within my family, underscoring how seemingly simple choices can have profound consequences. Growing up, my relationship with my family was always complex, particularly with my older brother. Despite my efforts to feel genuinely happy for him, his arrogance often overshadowed my admiration. Gifted in many areas, he had a way of positioning himself as the center of attention, which only amplified his brash demeanor. He didn't hesitate to tease or bully me, making our relationship tense. When he left for college, I felt an undeniable sense of relief. This dynamic was further strained when my parents divorced during my middle school years. Their marriage had been fraught with tension for as long as I could remember, and while they put on a united front in public, their unhappiness at home was palpable. Their split was triggered by my mother's affair with a college friend, which led to a bitter and contentious divorce. Despite the circumstances, my father agreed to shared custody. The aftermath of the divorce was challenging. My father began drinking more heavily, and his relationship with me grew increasingly distant, especially after I chose to maintain a friendly relationship with my mother and her new husband. My brother, on the other hand, sided completely with my father, often vocalizing his disdain for my mother and stepdad. This created a deep rift between us, as I sought to navigate a middle ground. A few months after the divorce, my mother remarried. I stood as a bridesmaid at her wedding, but my brother refused to attend. Despite his resentment, he was still required to spend half of each month with our mother, per the custody agreement, a situation he bitterly opposed. Unlike my father, my mother treated us equally, which my brother struggled to accept. For someone so accustomed to being the center of attention, the perceived loss of favoritism was difficult for him to process, leading to frequent outbursts. My father, believing my brother was being mistreated by my mother and stepfather, made several attempts to gain full custody. However, his claims lacked evidence and were ultimately unsuccessful. Over time, these battles only served to deepen the divisions within our family. Reflecting on my wedding day, I can't help but see how my father's absence, and the reasons behind it, are emblematic of the larger dynamics that have shaped our family. While I strive to move forward with grace, this event has left me grappling with the weight of old wounds, the complexity of familial love, and the ever-present challenge of finding balance in relationships marked by conflict and history. I felt a sense of relief knowing my mother truly cared for me and that my stepfather was a kind and decent man. As a child, I struggled with conflicting emotions about my mother's affair, which ended her marriage to my father. Over time, I chose to focus on my happiness and maintained a close relationship with her, a decision I would cherish even more after losing her to cancer 4 years ago. The time we spent together became precious memories, and I came to appreciate her unwavering love despite the complexities of her personal life. In her final days, my brother visited rarely, but he made an effort to be there toward the end, bringing her some comfort. After her passing, my stepfather moved out of state, though we stayed in touch. A year later, my brother relocated to London for a job, visiting our father annually, and our communication dwindled to nearly nothing. As the years passed, the dynamics in my family began to shift, particularly between my father and me. He apologized for his distant behavior after the divorce, admitting that he had felt betrayed and hurt. He also confessed to favoring my brother, which strained our relationship. We agreed to work on improving our bond, and to my surprise, it began to heal. The change was so profound that I asked him to walk me down the aisle at my wedding, and he agreed. Despite this progress, I always felt like a secondary concern to my father, especially when my brother was around. My father's efforts to connect with me only seemed to happen in my brother's absence, a pattern that became glaringly obvious with a recent incident. He asked me to postpone my wedding so he could go on a last-minute camping trip with my brother. Hurt and frustrated, I called my stepdad and asked him to walk me down the aisle instead. My stepdad, who had been a supportive presence during my mother's funeral, hesitated at first, aware of the tension this could cause with my father. Eventually, he agreed. As my wedding day approached, my father became increasingly distant, preoccupied with my brother's visit. On the big day, he was absent, a painful yet unsurprising reality. I held out hope he might arrive at the last minute, but that hope faded as I walked down the aisle with my stepdad by my side, a moment that was both joyful and bittersweet. Later, I sent my father a photo from the ceremony, showing my stepdad escorting me. Hours passed without a response, but as the evening wound down, he unexpectedly appeared, exhausted and apologetic. He admitted he regretted not prioritizing my wedding and suggested holding a second ceremony so he could walk me down the aisle. His plea left me torn between hope for a new beginning and frustration over his thoughtlessness. As we spoke, it became clear his regret wasn't entirely about missing my wedding. It was also about being outshone by my stepdad. His desire for a second ceremony seemed driven more by pride than genuine care for me. Disappointed, I told him I wouldn't rearrange my special day for his benefit. His tears and apologies followed, but they couldn't erase the years of neglect and the hurt he caused with his choices. I stood firm, recounting the many times he had let me down, and explained why I couldn't overlook this latest betrayal. Despite his emotional display, I couldn't ignore the pattern of his behavior. My stepdad's presence at my wedding had been an act of love and support, while my father's was a history of performative affection and empty promises. Eventually, I left him outside, retreating to the peace of my home. He and my brother departed shortly after. In the time since that day, I've reflected on what happened. While part of me feels regret for the harsh words and the pain they caused, I find comfort in knowing I stood up for myself. My decision to have my stepdad walk me down the aisle wasn't just a reaction to my father's absence. It was a recognition of who had genuinely been there for me. Throughout my life, I've made countless excuses for my father's actions, but I've reached my limit. His behavior is inexcusable, and I no longer feel obligated to forgive him. It's painful to confront the truth about someone you love, but everyone has their breaking point. For years, I endured his neglect silently, hiding the tears he caused. Now, I'm finally prioritizing my own well-being, even if it means leaving him behind. I've made the difficult but necessary decision to cut off contact with my father for now, a choice I feel justified in making. My husband supports me fully, though he made it clear he wanted this decision to be entirely my own. I also shared my concerns with my stepdad, worried that I had unintentionally used him as a pawn in my issues with my father. He reassured me, acknowledging the strength of our relationship, which brought me comfort. To anyone concerned about my stepdad's feelings, he has expressed no resentment, which eases my mind. In the days since my wedding, my father has reached out repeatedly, but I've chosen not to respond. I haven't read his messages, preferring to focus on the upcoming honeymoon and this new chapter of my life. When he called again this morning, I considered checking his messages, but decided against it. I didn't want his words to disrupt the peace I'm trying to build as I embark on this special journey with my husband. Eventually, curiosity got the better of me, and I reviewed the messages. They were heartfelt and apologetic, each conveying his regret for failing as a father. He admitted he had favored my brother over the years and acknowledged the validity of my grievances. He expressed a desperate desire to mend our relationship, calling me his only remaining biological child and pleading for forgiveness. While his words stirred up complex emotions, I had already decided that I needed distance to heal. I called him back to make my position clear. He answered immediately, beginning to apologize, but I interrupted. I explained that his constant calls and messages were not helping. They only reopened wounds I was trying to close. I told him I was about to leave for my honeymoon and needed space. I promised to reach out when I was ready to reconnect, but until then, I asked him to respect my boundaries and refrain from contacting me. He agreed, hiding any hurt in his voice, and the conversation ended on a quiet, yet definitive, note. By the third day of my honeymoon, I was finally starting to feel at ease, but my peace was disrupted by an unexpected call from my brother, who used a burner phone to reach me. Initially, I wanted to hang up as soon as I heard his voice, but his accusations of me being an escapist kept me on the line. He criticized my treatment of our father, demanded I apologize, and lectured me on the importance of family. He argued that our father would always be part of my life and that my stepdad could never replace him. His words felt juvenile, as though we were still children caught in the fallout of our parents' divorce. When I explained this was a matter between me and our father, he insisted it affected the entire family. He claimed I had ruined his visit and cut short their camping trip, accusing me of acting out of jealousy. I told him his accusations were baseless and immature, pointing out that despite his professional success, he seemed stuck in our childhood dynamics. Before he could respond, I ended the call, feeling both a sense of relief and frustration. After returning from my honeymoon, I decided it was time to confront the lingering issues with my father. I visited him, surprising him and my brother, who was also present. Ignoring my brother's habitual interference, I requested a private conversation with my father, and after some reluctance, he agreed. I expressed my disappointment in his recent behavior, particularly his request to reschedule my wedding for a camping trip. I reminded him of the progress we'd made in our relationship over the years and how his actions had undermined that progress. I also questioned whether his absence stemmed from genuine priorities or a sense of competition with my stepdad. The conversation was difficult but necessary. My father expressed deep regret for missing my wedding, and I reassured him that dwelling on the past wouldn't help either of us. I told him I wasn't ready to sever ties permanently. Losing my mother to cancer taught me how fleeting life can be, and despite my father's faults, I still cherish the good memories we've shared. However, I also emphasized that I needed time to heal. I explained that rebuilding our relationship would take time, possibly weeks, months, or even years, and I needed him to respect my space in the meantime. He agreed, asking if he could hug me before I left. We shared a brief, emotional embrace, and I managed to hold back tears until I was alone in my car. This isn't an ending, but rather a pause, a chance for both of us to reflect, heal, and decide how to move forward. The inheritance of $10 million from our parents would soon be decided, and I knew my sister Megan's intentions all too well. She made it clear she believed our parents adored her more and would have wanted her to inherit everything. "You know it's obvious," she said with a smirk. Why would they leave anything to someone as plain as you? Megan had hardly contributed during our parents' funeral, while I managed the overwhelming arrangements. She spent her time discussing the inheritance, as though she couldn't wait for the formalities to end. She eventually made her stance clear. "I'll take it all. Fine by me if you never contact me again," she said mockingly. Who would want to? I thought. She didn't realize she was the one being cut off, not me. Without a word, I turned my back on her laughter, feeling only a hollow resignation. I had lost my sister as surely as I'd lost our parents, yet no sadness came. I am Hillary, a 35-year-old office worker. Both of our parents were entrepreneurs who built successful businesses, allowing my sister and me to graduate from private schools and universities. After finishing my studies, I joined a company where I've worked steadily ever since. Megan, on the other hand, never sought stability. She drifted through life, taking occasional part-time jobs without any concrete plans for her future. Despite her lack of direction, our parents indulged her. They provided for her expenses and adventures, while urging me to be prudent and self-sufficient. The difference in treatment was painfully clear. Megan's life of ease was granted because of her extraordinary beauty. She had inherited our mother's large, expressive eyes and double eyelids, our father's sharp nose, and our grandmother's elegant figure. Everywhere she went, she turned heads, exuding charm and confidence. I, however, was not so fortunate. I had my mother's low nose, my father's small eyes, and my grandfather's stocky build. From the moment Megan was born, 6 years after me, she became the family's darling, effortlessly overshadowing me. As a child, I adored her, and she would follow me around, calling me Hillary. But by the time she reached elementary school, her beauty garnered attention that highlighted my own insecurities. Scouts would arrive to recruit her for modeling opportunities, but I was often met with polite dismissal. As I entered adolescence, Megan became aware of her advantages. By high school, she used them to torment me openly. She'd take my belongings, sometimes claiming them as her own, and stage melodramatic scenes to paint herself as the victim. Our parents always sided with her. "Hillary, you're the older sister," they'd chide. "Be patient with Megan. She's just teasing you." No amount of protest changed their perception. By the time I graduated university, I had had enough. I moved out and avoided home, taking holiday jobs to keep from returning. 4 years, I distanced myself from the family, rejecting their pleas to come back. Then, 3 years ago, everything changed. Our parents died in a sudden car accident, forcing Megan and me to confront each other after years of separation. At the funeral, she cried incessantly while I handled the arrangements, grieving quietly. But when the subject turned to inheritance, Megan's tears dried up, replaced by cold calculation. Our parents' estate, worth $10 million, was now the focus. It was no surprise when Megan began asserting her entitlement, but her attitude only confirmed one thing: I had no reason to stay tethered to her anymore. "I'm taking it all," Megan sneered. "After all, you're unattractive, and our parents loved me more. They'd want me to have everything." "Oh, do you need some money for plastic surgery?" "I don't want it," I replied calmly. Her surprise was evident, but I meant every word. The idea of inheriting was meaningless to me, especially after the chaos surrounding our parents' sudden deaths. There had been no time to grieve, as I was overwhelmed by the demands of relatives, subordinates, and business partners at the funeral. The whispered remarks comparing us, "Are they even sisters? They don't look alike at all," paired with Megan's smug expressions, only deepened my exhaustion. "I don't want the inheritance," I repeated. "You can have all $10 million, but there's one condition." Megan tensed, narrowing her eyes. "What condition?" "I won't take a cent, but in exchange, I'm severing all ties with you. From this moment on, we're no longer family. No contact, no help, ever." At first, she seemed stunned, but as the terms sank in, a smirk spread across her face. $10 million and cutting you off? Perfect. Why would I ever need someone as ugly as you? Just don't come crying to me later. Ignoring her mocking laughter, I left our family home for good. I had lost my parents and now my sister, but the relief of cutting ties outweighed any lingering sadness. 3 months passed peacefully until Megan began bombarding me with calls. I ignored them at first, but since I needed my phone for work, I reluctantly answered. "Hillary, I need a favor," she demanded. "I don't have a sister," I said coldly. "Stop contacting me." As I tried to hang up, she pressed on, her tone self-pitying but unapologetic. "I tried to spend Dad's money, but a friend at City Hall said I need to consult about inheritance taxes. Isn't it just mine? Do I really need to pay taxes for money my own father left me? I don't know any lawyers, so can you handle it? Her entitlement gave me a headache, but I decided to clarify the situation to shut her down. For the record, there's no inheritance tax in this case since the amount is under $1, $4 million, but you only have access because I renounced my claim. I already informed a lawyer, so I have no rights to Dad's estate. Any issues are your problem now. Wait, that's great, she began. Don't thank me, I interrupted, and don't contact me again. Megan ended the call in a huff. It was clear she hadn't done her homework. Inheritance isn't as simple as taking the money and running. Assets go through probate, and debts are settled before distribution. Megan's ignorance of these processes would soon catch up with her. Weeks later, Megan consulted a lawyer and learned the harsh truth. The $10 million was the total value of our parents' assets, not liquid cash. Most of it was tied to the businesses they had started, and Megan, who had no involvement, wasn't entitled to much. Worse, she discovered she was responsible for business debts as a co-signer on some loans. By the time debts were deducted, her inheritance amounted to just $1 million. Her calls resumed, this time frantic and tearful. Hillary, I'm only getting $1 million. This doesn't make any sense. That's still a lot of money, I said, exasperated, like winning the lottery. Didn't I tell you not to contact me again? But Megan, who had expected millions, wouldn't stop. Her troubles only grew when rumors spread that she had inherited $10 million. Relatives, supposed friends, and even strangers hounded her for money. Stalkers and extortionists appeared, drawn by the false rumor. Hillary, help me, she begged in desperation. Where are you now? But I had long since left her behind. The silence in my life was precious, and I had no intention of losing it again. Megan's frantic screams filled my voicemail. I'm suffering so much, she cried, her desperation palpable. Judging by her messages, she had visited my old apartment, unaware that I had terminated the lease and moved elsewhere. With no way to reach me, she resorted to relentless calls and voicemails. Eventually, she even went to the police. However, having boasted about inheriting $10 million and flaunting her newfound wealth by gifting designer bags, her plight was seen as self-inflicted. Rumors of her inheritance had spread like wildfire, and the authorities, overwhelmed by her situation, advised her to move. Then, one day, her voicemails took on a cheery tone. Hillary, I've met the man of my dreams, Peter. He doesn't know about the inheritance and truly loves me. I suspected a scam immediately. Sure enough, Peter, a man Megan met by chance, had proposed they move in together after learning about her savings. He convinced her that banks were risky and suggested she keep her money in a home safe instead. Megan, ignoring all advice, closed her account, converted her inheritance into cash, and stored it in the safe. The next day, the safe was empty, and Peter was gone. Her voicemails quickly turned chaotic again. I was deceived. Peter was only after the money. My life is the worst. Hillary, why won't you help me? Her messages grew angrier and more desperate. It's because of your attitude that you're ugly, she screamed in one. Instead of learning from her mistakes, Megan continued blaming everyone but herself. As her funds dwindled, Megan had to leave her luxury apartment and move back into our old family home. There, she faced a new nightmare. Self-proclaimed relatives and so-called friends showed up daily, claiming she should share the house or let them live with her. Mentally exhausted and terrified, Megan left me voicemails twice a day, begging for help. Finally, I made up my mind to respond. Hello, I said flatly, answering her call for the first time. Megan gasped, clearly shocked to hear my voice. Hillary, help me, I hate this life. I want to live with you, please. Where should I go? No, I said firmly. Do you remember our agreement? I gave up the inheritance on the condition that you'd never contact me again. How many times have you broken that promise? I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. Please come get me. I can't stand this anymore. Please help me. Megan's pleas grew more frantic, but I didn't budge. No, the only reason I picked up was to tell you this is the last time. I'm changing my number. You won't be able to reach me again. Stop wasting your time and your money on call charges. Hillary, please. I interrupted her. You always lied to me and put me down, but now you've destroyed yourself. I'm finally free of you, and I'm happy. You should try to find a way to fix your life, too. Her screams echoed over the phone as I hung up for the last time. She may have been begging for forgiveness, but it no longer concerned me. I had fulfilled my end of the deal, renounced the inheritance, and kept my distance. Megan's ruin was her own doing. I turned off my phone, headed to a mobile shop, and changed my number. Since then, my life has flourished. I commute to work from a new, peaceful home, focus on improving my skills, and have rapidly advanced in my career. You've changed, my boss remarked one day. You're no longer weighed down by comparisons. At lunch, my colleagues noted, you used to say things like, I'm just this or I'm just that, but not anymore. You seem brighter and more confident. For the first time, I've learned to value myself without comparing myself to others. I no longer have a family, but I found contentment and happiness on my own terms. I was happily settled in life, having married into a wealthy family, yet, Mason sat across from me in the hotel lobby, mockingly commenting on my seemingly simple lifestyle. His sharp voice pierced the calm, taunting me with his latest boast. He had married the daughter of the president of Goldsmith Enterprises. His laughter, filled with pride, echoed in the air, but it was the mention of Goldsmith Enterprises that truly caught my attention. The name was familiar, though I couldn't place it at first. Then, it clicked. As Mason continued to gloat, unaware of the humor I found in his bragging, I reflected on my life. My name is Patricia, and I'm 37 years old, living contentedly with my husband, Mason. I work in my family's real estate business, primarily handling administrative duties, while my father, the president, manages the company's broader strategies. As an only child, I'm expected to lead the company one day. Despite this looming responsibility, I've always strived to balance my personal and professional life, especially with Mason. Mason, who graduated high school and works at a moving company, has a physically demanding job I deeply respect. To avoid making him feel inadequate, I seldom mention my university degree or my anticipated future as company president. We met through a mutual friend during college after Mason's company helped her move. Initially, he was interested in her, but after she turned him down, we started to get to know each other. His laid-back demeanor complemented my meticulous nature, and our relationship blossomed. We married in our late 20s after a brief courtship, and his parents warmly embraced me, making my transition into his family seamless. For the most part, our marriage was smooth. Mason's demanding job often left him exhausted, but he remained devoted, even on his toughest days. He expressed gratitude when I stayed up to share dinner with him. I felt fortunate to have such a caring partner. However, after a year of marriage, cracks began to form in our once harmonious life. One night, as we prepared for bed, Mason unexpectedly brought up the topic of children. His tone, tinged with irritation, caught me off guard. While I also wanted children, I believed it would happen naturally with time. It's only been a year, there's no rush, I reassured him. Despite my calm, Mason grew assertive, quoting statistics about the likelihood of conceiving within a year. The figure he mentioned seemed high, but I suggested a practical solution. If you're concerned, maybe we should both get tested, I said, hoping to address any issues together. His reaction stunned me. What are you implying? That it's my fault? He snapped. Usually, it's the woman's fault. His tone was laced with contempt. I was taken aback. I had never accused him of anything. Yet, Mason seemed intent on blaming me. It's definitely the woman's fault, he added coldly. Hurt and shaken, I could barely muster a reply. Of course, I said softly, so just you get tested. I'm too busy with work. His response was equally harsh. I have a job too. You know, you're just coasting along in your dad's company. His words stung. While my role involved administrative tasks, I was actively learning from my father, preparing to lead the business. That night, any attempt at discussion was futile, and we fell asleep turned away from each other, a heavy silence lingering between us. Over time, Mason's attitude shifted drastically. One evening, after a long meeting with my father, I returned home to find him irate over dinner not being ready. I'm sorry, I explained hastily. I just got home 15 minutes ago. I'll start cooking now. But Mason dismissed my apology. Typical of a small company's boss's daughter, he scoffed, failing to grasp the scale of my father's enterprise, a significant real estate firm with hundreds of employees. His bitterness cast a shadow over our daily lives. That night, as I rushed to the kitchen, I suggested he relax with a drink while I cooked. Alcohol, though a temporary balm, had become a troubling staple in maintaining peace. It pained me to see our relationship reduced to this. The next morning, his cold demeanor persisted as he left for work, his parting words sharp, "Make sure dinner's ready." When I got home, I exhaled deeply, my mind focused on the day ahead. I had taken the day off to visit the gynecologist for fertility testing, something Mason had insisted on, though he refused to participate himself. It was frustrating to face this alone, but complaining wouldn't change anything. If the problem lay with me, I was determined to start treatment immediately. Time was precious, fertility declines with age, and I wanted to address any issues without delay. The clinic was crowded, and I waited an hour before my examination. After a series of tests, the doctor explained that the results would be ready at my next appointment. The possibility that I might be the source of our fertility struggles was daunting, but I resolved to take whatever steps were necessary. When Mason came home that evening, I told him, "I went for the fertility test today." His response was as cutting as it was dismissive. "Figures if the problem's with you. It's good you're getting tested. Let me know the results." His assumption that I was solely to blame was hurtful, yet I held back my frustration, unwilling to escalate the tension. 6 years passed, and I turned 37. Our attempts to have a child remained unsuccessful, and Mason seemed to have resigned himself to the idea of never becoming a father. His late nights became more frequent, and sometimes he didn't come home at all. When he did, he would casually explain that he'd been out drinking and singing karaoke until dawn. His behavior resembled that of a carefree college student rather than a committed husband, and it was increasingly infuriating. Meanwhile, my career demands grew, and I had to push the dream of starting a family aside. But Mason's actions were becoming intolerable. His disregard for our marriage was painfully evident. One day, on his day off, Mason left the house but forgot his smartphone in the living room. I picked it up to place it in our bedroom, but it rang just then. The caller ID displayed a name, Diana. Assuming she was a colleague, I answered to let her know Mason had left his phone at home. "Hey, Mason, you're late. I've been waiting for 50 minutes, hurry up, or we'll miss the park opening. We haven't had a date in so long," a flirtatious voice said. I froze, stunned. The mention of a date sent my heart racing. This woman wasn't just a colleague, she was someone Mason was seeing romantically. My hands trembled as I hung up the phone, disbelief and anger coursing through me. While I had been dealing with the weight of potential infertility, Mason had been carelessly engaging in an affair. His recent distance and indifference now made perfect, painful sense. Still holding his phone, I felt the urge to confirm my suspicions. Unlocking it using his birthdate, I scrolled through his call history and messages. The evidence was undeniable. His exchanges with Diana were full of affectionate and intimate words that turned my stomach. I meticulously documented everything, taking photos of the messages and call logs with my phone. Then, I placed his device back in its usual spot, acting as though nothing had changed. A month passed in this unsettling limbo. One day, my father, the president of our company, called me into his office. "I have something important to discuss with you," he said gravely. His tone made me brace for serious news, adding another layer of stress to my already overwhelming situation. That evening, Mason, perhaps sensing the inevitable, suggested we consider separating. His timing couldn't have been more convenient. I had already been preparing to address his infidelity and initiate a divorce. "Yes, let's divorce," I agreed quickly. Mason seemed taken aback by my readiness, perhaps expecting resistance. His relief, likely fueled by thoughts of a future with Diana, stung deeply. He handed me divorce papers the next day, which I signed without hesitation. "I'll file these tomorrow. I'll be leaving the house," he said nonchalantly. "Are you sure about the mortgage?" I asked, suspecting he hadn't fully considered his financial situation. His job, while demanding, wasn't lucrative enough to cover the payments alone, but I didn't feel any obligation to cushion his transition. A few days later, I moved back to my parents' house. They were initially concerned about my well-being but became furious when I revealed Mason's betrayal. Their support and reassurance helped solidify my decision to leave him behind. I threw myself into work, using my responsibilities to distract from the emotional wreckage of my failed marriage. A year passed in a whirlwind of projects and commitments. One evening, noticing how consumed and fatigued I'd become, my father suggested I take a break. "Why don't you take a trip? Things will only get busier next month," he said, his concern evident. Grateful for the suggestion, I decided to take a solo trip to the Northeast, craving peace and a change of scenery. The crisp air of the Northeast was invigorating, cleansing my weary soul. The locals were kind and welcoming, their warmth slowly mending my spirit. Wanting to indulge in the best experience possible, I booked a stay in a renowned Los Angeles hotel for the final leg of my journey. After checking in, I settled into the lobby with a welcome drink, letting the fatigue of the past year melt away. For the first time in a long while, I felt a flicker of hope for what lay ahead. The serene atmosphere of the hotel lobby wrapped around me as I sipped my drink, feeling a rare and precious sense of peace. I half-joked to myself about moving to Los Angeles when a familiar voice pierced through my thoughts. Huh? Hey, what are you doing here? I turned, startled, and my heart sank. It was Mason, my ex-husband, entering the lobby with 2 large suitcases. The last thing I expected on this journey of healing was to encounter him. Beside him was a young woman, likely in her early 20s, with flawless skin, bold makeup, and striking red nails. She wore a short skirt that seemed inappropriate for the chilly weather, but her confidence carried it off. Mason? I blurted out, disbelief clear in my voice. Who is she? Oh, let me introduce you, Mason said, grinning with an excitement I hadn't seen in years. This is Diana, my new wife. We're on our honeymoon, and guess what? She's the daughter of a wealthy businessman. Diana, the name hit me like a thunderclap. She was the same Diana from the phone call that had revealed Mason's betrayal. A wave of discomfort surged through me as Mason's pride in marrying someone young and rich became all too obvious. You're here alone? That's sad, Mason sneered, his words dripping with disdain. Diana smirked as she eyed me. Mason, is this your ex-wife? She asked, her tone sharp. She looks old. Hurry up with the check-in, she added, irritated. Mason draped an arm around her and laughed, a grating sound that broke the tranquility of the lobby. Yeah, I'm set for life now, marrying into money. Thanks for making the divorce so easy, Patricia, he said mockingly. Diana's dad is the head of Goldsmith Enterprises. They even paid off our house mortgage in a snap. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. Goldsmith Enterprises? I said casually. Oh, I know them. Their main office is in that big building downtown, right? Mason looked momentarily surprised. You've been there? Yes, I replied evenly. That building is part of my father's real estate portfolio. He bought it recently for $500 million. He's mentioned them before. They're a tenant, though apparently not the best one. Mason and Diana exchanged puzzled glances. What do you mean? Diana asked, her confidence wavering. I let the silence linger for a moment before continuing. Goldsmith Enterprises has been late on their rent for months. My father was just talking about starting legal action if it doesn't get resolved. Diana's face paled. That's impossible. Our company is doing great, she stammered, her voice filled with doubt. I'm not making this up, I said calmly, pulling out my phone. I called my father and asked him to send over the most recent rent notice. Within moments, I showed them the document, which clearly listed Goldsmith Enterprises' overdue payments. Diana's bravado crumbled. Come to think of it, she murmured, Dad has been stressed lately, talking about slow sales and layoffs. Mason, however, exploded in denial. You're lying, you're just trying to ruin us. You've always been spiteful, he shouted, his accusations loud enough to draw glances from nearby guests. His words were a sharp echo of our troubled past, but this time, they didn't sting. Spiteful? I repeated, my tone steady. Mason, I have no reason to care about your life. You moved on, and so have I. I just feel sorry for Diana. Did you marry her for her money, just like you rushed into marriage with me to have kids? You always blame others for your problems, but here's the truth, I'm over you. Completely. Mason's face twisted with anger. Arrogant as ever, he spat. You can't even have kids. Diana and I are planning to start a family after this trip. I smiled faintly. Oh, I didn't mention it, did I? I'm 5 months pregnant. His jaw dropped. I remarried, I continued. My husband supports me in every way you never could. And for the record, Mason, I had no fertility issues. The clinic confirmed it years ago. If you're wondering why you and Diana haven't conceived, maybe you should take a hard look at yourself. The color drained from Mason's face. Does that mean his voice faltered. Diana's scorn flared. You're infertile? Why didn't you tell me, she snapped. Feeling no need to linger, I delivered my final words. Please settle the overdue rent soon, or we'll pursue legal action. Goodbye, Mason. As I walked away, their voices rose in an argument behind me. Back in my room, I felt a deep sense of closure. When I returned from the trip, my husband greeted me warmly. Welcome back. I hope you had a chance to relax. I did, I replied, smiling. For the first time in years, I felt truly free from my past. Later, I learned through my father's connections that Goldsmith Enterprises had spiraled into financial ruin, mired in scandal and debt. Mason's dreams of luxury had crumbled as swiftly as they'd been built. My life, by contrast, was filled with new beginnings and genuine love. I had moved on, not just from Mason, but from the shadow he had cast over my life.